Today's episode is brought to you in part by Cold-Blooded Caffeine, a small batch coffee company built around reptiles, conservation, and really good coffee. Founded by Trey Hall and McKendrick Dunn, Cold-Blooded Caffeine connects roasted to order coffee with real-life conservation in coffee-producing countries. 5% of every bag sold goes directly to conservation efforts, and I'm excited to announce that the Expert and the Idiot podcast now has its own custom coffee blend. Every penny from my profits from that blend will be donated to indigo conservation through the Orion Society. If you want great coffee that actually supports the animals and ecosystems we all care about, check out coldbloodedcaffeine.com. This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra, make your reptiles feel at home. This episode is brought to you in part by Unlimited Exotic Pets. Every day is Veranda Day for Nick Lillis, and it shows. At Unlimited Exotic Pets, Nick produces high-quality monitor lizards with a deep commitment to ethical care practices and top-tier nutrition. These aren't just pets. They're responsibly bred, ethically raised animals. Whether you're looking for a new companion, starting a breeding project, or anything in between, Nick has you covered. Unlimited Exotic Pets, keeping and breeding quality without limitations. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. This is our deep dive with Stephen Kush, and today we're going to be talking about ball pythons and morph combinations.
Yes, we are.
No,
Now
we're going to be all right.
The spider ball python, the best morph ball python that everybody should have in their collections.
So today we're going to be doing a deep dive on scrub pythons. Basically, everything that is everything in the genus Similia or Similia.
Or Similia,
I guess we'll say
if you're Ryan Young.
Oh, he says Similia?
Yeah, I don't think it's right at all, but he does say it. Shout out to Ryan Young.
There's always a third way to say these things, but for the sake of this episode, we will say Somalia because that's how you say it, Stephen. Yes. And you are the scrub shepherd.
And it is my daycare.
It is. Oh, God damn it. All right. So we'll get right into it. Well, first of all, I mean, how you doing, buddy? How's everything going? How's things there in Texas? What's the weather like? How you doing?
So this is going to come out about 7 or 8 months after we record it, to my knowledge. But,
you son of a bitch.
It is Saturday, January 24th, and it is the storm that we're all so worried about right now. I guess, knock on wood. I don't know if I have wood around me. Knock on
PVC. You're a snake keeper. God dang it.
I think where I'm at here in El Paso, all the way out west in Texas, is just going to kind of mildly miss the major impact of the storm that like people out in Dallas and Austin are so worried about. But overnight we're probably going to get some snow, which is in these days, I mean, I've never seen snow here aside from like on the mountains. So, according to people I know who have lived here much longer, it used to snow pretty regular. Like every year it would snow like once. Doesn't really stick very long, but hasn't snowed for quite a while with climate stuff. So, if everything works out, like from a power standpoint, if everything stays good, bring on the snow. I'd be pretty stoked. But yeah, so got everything prepared. Some quail are inside and generators ready to go. So I'm just kind of the forecast continually got better throughout the week, where there was more of a concern of freezing rain earlier than there is as we're recording this. So, but yeah, we'll see. I'm just hoping and praying that everything works out for everybody.
What about your what about pairings? What do you got going on for pairings this year? Like how are things looking going into the season?
To know the real answer, go to patreon.com/Kush Reptile.
You have a Patreon?
I finally do, man. All this time later.
I will put that in the show notes so people can sign up.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Yep. I've been encouraged for quite a few years to do it. And I just finally decided that this was going to be when I started. So it's up and running.
Cool.
But
so you're going to be a terrible.
Sorry,
okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to be a terrible podcast guest now and make it where everything's behind a paywall.
Well, actually, yes. No. Yeah, I don't like to talk about breeding stuff publicly too much. Just honestly, like kind of superstition more than anything else. But
you can be vague.
Yeah, I would say as of now, stuff's looking good. Like I've had some good progress on pairings that I've been very like highly anticipating, and overall, I just think I had a better cycling program this year, and I think it is kind of playing out that way as far as the scrubs go. And then we're right about at the time when the first round of colubrids are going to get started, be that the spilotes and the indigos, and then in about, well, by the time this is out, we probably already have babies on the ground. But as of recording this,
you son of a bitch.
A little over a month away from pulling like the pits out of brumation, and then it'll be right off to the races with them. So it's ramping up. It's ramping up for sure. Fun start.
Since you have experience with indigos, can I kind of get your thoughts on feeding them? Because I have two little baby indigos, and I've been feeding them about every 5 days. I've been throwing them like a hopper, something right about the width of their body, maybe a little under. Is that good? Should I do 2 hoppers at a time? I actually was doing 2 hoppers, and then I would do 1 hopper like every 5 days, and I'd kind of cycle back and forth.
That sounds pretty good. I mean, the thing with indigo snakes is they're machines. They're gonna eat shit and grow, and as long as you're at least feeding them weekly, if not more frequently, you're going to be just fine. Like you couldn't feed them like a python and have them be healthy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just fine. The thing that I would say is just kind of increase volume as they continue to grow to keep up with it. But, you'll be able to tell just by the condition of the snake. If the snake seems a little thin, up the food a little bit. If the snake is of what you consider a healthy structure, which is pretty easy to tell with indigos, they're pretty solid, robust snakes, then you're doing just fine. So I wouldn't be worried about putting too much size on until they're probably 4 or 5 years old.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I had Dr. Loafman on, and he talked about colubrids and, how much they eat and how fast they grow in the wild with that study. And, so I've been like, all right, I'm not going to be afraid to feed these guys, feed them and let them grow. I mean, they're so cool, dude. They really are, but they are so much more work than pythons.
Yeah.
Just
for sure.
Yeah. And but what's funny is, every time I so I have the 2 and they're in tubs in a separate room in the house in quarantine. And when I have to clean their tubs, it's like a 40-minute ordeal. But that's just because I spend so much time holding them because they're so damn cool.
Yeah, for sure.
If I were to just get in and get out, it would probably be like 10 minutes. But then I'm like, oh, look at you. You're so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all relative as far as like how much care snakes take. Like you compare it to almost any non-gecko lizard, and like snakes aren't shit. But then, indigo snakes are definitely up there as far as the amount of maintenance that they take. My only note for people would be, and I'm not sure how you're doing it, but by God, don't torture yourself. Keep them on bedding.
Mm.
Don't keep indigos on paper unless you're a masochist. So,
And what kind of bedding do you recommend? Because I get there's the compacted sawdust chip things that I think John Michaels recommends that you can get at Tractor Supply, the pellets.
okay.
And then, I have friends that recommend Aspen. My buddy Phil recommends Aspen. What do you recommend for bedding?
I mean, honestly, you can take a million different approaches. I think that more than the type of bedding would be the ventilation of the enclosure that's important, just because of how rancid their shits can be. That
Mm.
if it's on a more dry substrate, then it's going to absorb it a lot quicker. But if you wanted to use cypress or cocoa or whatever it may be, I mean that's what I use. But I'm also out here in the desert. And that's what I use for everything. So like I can dry that bedding out pretty easily out here, um, but it's not going to absorb all of that quite as quickly as like aspen or sandy chips might. So if you're going to use a bedding that can hold more moisture, you just got to make sure that enclosure is well ventilated. But I mean, I would use substrate that they can kind of burrow around in a little bit, because they'll definitely do that. Be that, you can do that with most beddings. I like natural beddings personally. Like I don't love all the pellets or Carefresh or stuff like that. Just personally, just not
Is
for
that
me.
like an aesthetics thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Just like, it seems like just as unnatural as paper to me. But I like cypress, and I mix it with peat moss and some topsoil, mostly for the aesthetic of it. And I mean, for pythons, it's very, very functional. Um, but then for colubrids that I could be using, and then, if you want to increase the humidity, you're not going to worry about molding it like you would aspen or sandy chips or something like that. So,
Mm. Yeah, that all makes sense. And do you think that, talk to me about African soft furs? Like, why do you think that they're the best feeder? I mean, are they like more nutritious? Do you think I should get them on African soft furs?
I mean, I think you should get everything on African soft furs, man. They're fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, just absolutely everything, man. But yeah, and the thing about African soft furs is that they just have been so unavailable for so long. That's really the problem with them. I produce African soft furs for my collection, and I love them. There's some species that can get hooked on them, and that's not necessarily a bad thing unless you don't have access to steady stream of African soft furs. But I don't have anything that I can only feed African soft furs. So,
Mm.
like with my scrub pythons, basically they're on mice until they hit about the size of being too big for a jumbo mouse, and then they're on African soft furs until they're on like medium rats to large rats. Um, and then they're on rats from there, but I can switch back and forth if need be. But yeah, I mean, the animals seem to thrive and grow super well on them. So I'm a fan of using African soft furs.
This episode is brought to you by Chewy. Most people think of Chewy for dog and cat food, but if you keep reptiles, you should absolutely be using them too. Chewy carries everything from all the brands you trust, like Exoterra, Arcadia, Zoomed, and everything in between. Live feeders to frozen rodents, enclosures, substrate, heat lamps, thermostats, water bowls, misters, and more, all in one place, shipped straight to your door. Sign up for Chewy Plus today, free for 30 days. You get free shipping, 5% rewards, and exclusive offers. I use Chewy, and you should too. All right, are you ready to jump into Scrub Pythons?
Yeah, always. Absolutely always.
All right, we will start with okay, so this is sort of an honorable mention. It is the Owen Pelly python,
Yes.
which was was it really considered a scrub python, or was it just part of the genus Somalia?
Yeah, I mean, I guess then what do you call a scrub python? I kind of use that term kind of colloquially to describe the whole Somalia genus, where it would also be applicable to Bowen's pythons. But I'm not sure if like the hobby or the scientific community really considered the Oenpellis to be a scrub python. They're very similar in a lot of ways, very similar in body structure. Long, slender, semi-arboreal kind of snake, big head, and similar head structure to scrub pythons. So in a lot of ways, they're quite similar. I know that they're, I think, their own unique genus fully at this point. My knowledge on Oenpellis is not run super deep, but I know that Gavin Bedford's book has been out for a little over a year now, I believe, and anybody who has interest in Oenpelli pythons, that's the resource to start with for sure.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like since the 1970s, they've been reclassified several times. They were Python in the 70s. In the 80s, they were Morelia. Uh, Holy cow. Then what? How do you pronounce this? NYCTO. How do you pronounce that?
I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's what they are now. Somebody's going
Okay.
to be like, "Oh, you guys are so stupid."
The idiot reptile podcast.
Yeah, Nictophelio Python, Nictophilo Python.
All
I
right.
don't know.
Sounds good
Uh,
to me.
that was also in the 80s. Then they went back to Morelia in the 90s. Then Somalia in 2014, and then in 2020 they went back to Nictophelio Python.
Okay.
So
We had a good
and
run.
this is Yeah, that is wild. And this is all from this is all AI. So it could all be wrong
Oh, okay.
for the listeners,
Oh, yeah.
but that's what a quick query pulled up. All right, so that's I think that's kind of everything we need to say about Oenpelli, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as this conversation goes, you know, if anybody in Australia has an opportunity to get their hands on any of them, highly recommend it because it is the envy of all of us here American keepers that you guys get access to a snake like that. So yeah, they're amazing. I'd love to be able to see one in person one day. They get absolutely massive. I think records of over like 14, 16 feet are not unheard of. So
Crazy.
yeah, they're huge, very, very slender bodied, big headed snakes, super beautiful. Yeah.
Hmm.
And pretty crazy story on them as well. Just how, you know, kind of similar in ways like with rough scale pythons where they were like damn near extinct in the wild, just super, super rare. And now they're being produced in captivity and, I believe becoming a little more plentiful in the wild.
Hmm. All right, well let's get into King Horneye then.
Yeah.
We'll now that we've gotten past the honorable mentions, we'll get into sort of another honorable mention because it's not something that is available here in the
Right.
States.
Right. Yeah. So this is the obvious, the Australian scrub python, Somalia king horneye, the true giant of the scrub python world. Um, the ones that can legitimately get, 18 plus feet long, where none of the Indo Papuan stuff will ever reach that size, at least to the best of my knowledge. And they are, as Adam alluded to, essentially gone from the US. There were king horneye in the country. There are still two that are at Reptile Gardens in South Dakota, to the best of my most recent knowledge. They're both females. And as far as hobby stuff goes, I know the Barkers had some, Eugene Bissett had some. There were inevitably others that were floating around, but I don't think anybody ever was able to have success breeding them. And so went those. So we
Mm.
are kinghorn lists in the country, but they're pretty incredible. I'd love to be able to go see some in the wild someday. It does seem that a majority of them don't really reach that giant status, that they're kind of on like the larger end of what we would expect with a lot of the, Amethystina, Clastolepis, et cetera, 12, 13 feet or so. But the ones that are massive have certainly and do certainly exist. I would just assume that a lot of those are much older animals that just got very lucky to be in a biologically plentiful habitat, because it takes quite a lot to reach that big as a snake, especially a wild snake, where as a
Mhm.
captive snake, quite a bit easier to reach that massive size.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild when you see pictures of them, and
Yeah,
yeah, the thickness of their body is just
yeah.
crazy.
I mean, there are those iconic pictures, and I'm blanking on this herpetologist's name, but he's this dude in a river with this giant kinghorn eye, and it's like it looks like the thickness of like a Burmese python. It's
Yeah.
it that animal was probably 18 plus feet long, just a freaking monster. So yeah, they're pretty amazing. As far as their appearance goes, they're very, very similar to the southern amethystina scrub pythons. So for anybody who is uh, kinghorn eye obsessed, that is not Australian, that wants to keep a similar scrub python, the southern scrubs at times are almost indistinguishable from like a visual standpoint. Obviously, some anatomical differences, some the size being a big difference, but very, very similar to them in that way.
Mm. Yeah, truly a beautiful snake. I was trying to find a good picture to throw up
Mm.
of a big one here. This is from
If you
here
look at like Australian scrub python river, you might get that picture.
is that a wild bird?
It's a captive bird. It's a
Oh, okay.
quail. Is it
Oh, that's
loud?
I mean I can hear it. It's funny because
Okay.
I was sitting there thinking like normally normally I don't hear any birds in your house, but it makes sense because you brought them in because the cold.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, I still have the Coturnix quail are outside still. They're very cold tolerant. The button quail are inside though, because them not quite so much. So, uh,
So that this is a
yeah,
photo of a kinghorn eye. I
yeah,
mean, you can just see the absolute. These guys aren't. It's four guys
yeah,
spread out decently. It looks like two of them are probably 3.5 to 4 feet,
yeah,
apart. And yeah, it's a huge python,
yeah. Giant,
very large.
absolutely massive. So, yeah, I mean, kind of for better or worse, we don't have them over here. I would say if we did, the market for these snakes would be rather tiny on account of their giant status. And
Mm.
you asked me beforehand, and about if I would want to have kinghorn eye, or like what would I do if I could? I definitely would, but like a pair, I would have no ambition of having any sort of group of these snakes. Like I feel like one clutch might satisfy the entire U.S. demand of people who can actually reasonably keep them.
Yeah,
So, kind of the same way how there's way too many mainland retics out there. I wouldn't want to be part of propagating a large volume of giant snakes that nobody can properly take care of. So I'll stick
yeah,
with my moderate sized scrub pythons.
yeah. I've got a another picture here, and full credit goes to
That's him.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Sambono.
Yep. That is it. I knew it was Joe. Joe. Yeah. Those are those iconic pictures. I mean, that's a monster right there.
Dude, that's intimidating.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Like you look at the head on it and you look at it how open his hand is.
Yeah, and that he does
Probably
not look like a small guy by any means. So
yeah, that's nuts. I mean, his hand is probably what 18 inches down from the head of the snake,
yeah, maybe
16,
even
18
2 feet.
inches
Yeah,
something. And his hand is like wide open.
yeah,
Like he's just supporting that snake. That's how
yeah,
thick this thing
yeah.
is.
It's like it looks like the size of a big adult retic.
Yeah. Isn't that bananas? Like when you hear scrub python, you think slender.
Right. Yeah, that
And
animal's had a few wallabies in its day. That's for fucking sure.
man, yeah, intimidating for
Yeah,
sure.
big time. Yeah, I can't remember if it was the stories of like the ones that Eugene Bissett had, or if there was a zoo story, but like of I think it was here in the U.S. of somebody who had just a giant kinghorn eye, and they said that the animal's strike range was like legitimately 8 feet.
Jeez.
So because scrub pythons have pretty giant strike ranges, but not quite that. So I think they said they worked with like a damn near like a riot shield. So
Golly.
yeah, yeah, it'd be fun for sure. I mean, I'd love to be able to interact with one. If I lucky enough to go to Australia someday and see one in a collection or something that's truly giant, because at least from the people who I've spoken with, finding a giant in the wild is like, good luck.
Yeah.
You might find a 12-footer and be like, oh my God, this thing is huge, but you're not finding, I think you're gonna have a really hard time finding a 17, 18-footer in the wild, but they got them in captivity. So to be able to mess with an animal like that and see all the scrub behaviors just in this giant package would be pretty fucking cool.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into Bolani. This
Yes.
is one that you haven't had too much experience with,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I've, interacted with plenty of Bolin's pythons in my day. I always go to Ari as kind of my Bolin's resource, but they are the true Highland scrub python. Like, no matter how you want to look at it. Anatomically, very different from scrub pythons in lots of ways. Their body structure, if imagine a scrub python kind of like that, Bolin's python is kind of like that, a little flatter, wider, smaller heads, relatively more compact heads. Obviously, coloration wise, very different and makes a whole lot of sense based on their habitat. They're basically just little, and sometimes not little, solar panels in that kind of high elevation cloud forest environment, try to keep themselves warm. And similar scalation for sure, that really velvety texture, the overlapping deep scales that create that velvety texture. So they're
Do you
pretty.
think them being more flattened out and having that wider body structure would be also to help absorb heat from the sun?
Maybe I would have to imagine based on their habitat, they're not carrying out nearly as many arboreal behaviors as scrub pythons. And it might just come down to that. They have a more terrestrial lifestyle than scrubs do. I would kind of defer to Ari on exactly why, but then also when you hold a Bolin's python, they do not grab onto you the way a scrub does. So they're much more kind of running through your hands instead of like grabbing you with their tail and then just kind of cruising wherever they feel like cruising, like a scrub will. So
Who's
that'd be
like
my guess.
who is like successfully breeding them year after year in captivity in the States?
As of recent, Scott Flood is the guy who was doing it. Frederick from, I believe, Sweden or Germany, somewhere over there. He had a good run of, I think, like 3 consecutive years in the mid to late 2010s of successive reproduction. But as far as like long-term continued success, it's never happened. But Frederick and Scott would be probably the 2 people I'd point to of like having routine success over, years at a time, doing it at the highest level.
And you did an episode with Scott Flood, and I would like I wanted to get him on the podcast, and then when I listened to your episode, I'm like, there's no point. Like, you nailed it. I think it's like honestly one of the best episodes you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Questions were so good. It was such a good interview, and you got so much information out of him. And it was fantastic. It makes me want to join your Patreon right now.
Oh, well. You get a whole lot more than that if you join the Patreon.
So yeah, if anybody's listening and they want to hear more about Bolin's, definitely check out Ari's podcast, which is fantastic.
Yes, no doubt.
And also, that episode with Scott Flood was just really, really good. It was one of those ones where you just listen to it and you're like, oh my God, that's a great question. Just one after another. You did a phenomenal job with that.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Anything else on Bolani?
Sure. There's a whole hell of a lot more to say about them. Obviously, from a care standpoint, it's going to be a quite different experience. I've never cared for Boelen's pythons, but long term, and but like temperature wise, they need cooler temperatures. You kind of equate them a lot of ways to diamond pythons, and more than likely, so if you were to keep a Boelen's python the way you kept a regular old python, you probably would significantly shorten its lifespan. Um, as is the case with many snakes that experience a dramatic cool down throughout the year. If you keep them warm, you're really just shortening their lifespan because they're biologically inclined to go through that yearly cycle. And it seems at this point probably a necessary step of reproduction, which makes perfect sense. So if you have a room where it's lower 70s, you can provide a hotspot for a few hours a day, probably the way to go. Or if you have like an 80-degree python room, probably not best for a long-term situation for a Boelen's python. Short-term, probably just fine. Seems like they are very hardy captives in a lot of ways, and then breeding is where a lot of the issues kind of come into play. But I'd have to imagine if you were to raise these animals in the proper climates, that by the time breeding comes along, they're just so conditioned to what they're doing that they're very comfortable, and you have a much greater chance of success with them.
Yeah, the diamond pythons are probably very similar in that regard.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. As far as pythons go, one of the more even comparisons, like with the, staying in Boidae, Sanzinia would be the other comparison you could make as well, of a montane, temperate climate species that really needs a cool down for the sake of their biological functioning.
Interesting. Yeah, I have the diamonds outside, and one of my females got down to 33 degrees, which was terrifying.
Yeah, I would be pretty scared myself. Yeah, I did that
it was
with Tony Dorr and Brandon Wheeler recently, and they were talking about their SoCal carpets and diamonds, and I'm like, man, more power to you guys. It's fucking kind of scary, but the snakes don't seem to be affected whatsoever. Like Tony said that I think one of his female coastals was just like out cruising in like the low 40s. That's wild.
The thing is, though, so Tony has heated hides for his.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for them to go in there and warm up and then come out and cruise around in the 40s. Sure. Whereas mine, if it's in the 40s outside, they are bedded down. They are not moving. Yeah. Going down to 33 was not intentional. That was terrifying. Sure. They now have an insulated hide, and that's their only hide. So they either, when the temperature drops, and now I verify that they're in that insulated hide, which is made out of that purple insulation board. And I basically just cut it up and, hot glued it together and made a hole in it so they can escape the cold.
Cool.
Anything in the 30s, they come inside now. And by inside, I mean the garage. So they're still in the 60s.
I probably do the exact same. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not good. It was very, very frightening. But she's good. She's good. So all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into, I think, one of my favorite scrub pythons is the Halmaheras. I've held a baby from Dr. Stephen Tillis. I tried taking it home. It didn't pan out the way I wanted it to.
Damn.
But yeah, so Tracy A, the Halmahera python. Let's get into those. Now we're getting into the meat of it. This is something that you've reproduced. You have a substantial collection of Halmaheras, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but it has to be one of the larger groups ever put together of the species. So I think I have like 15 Halmaheras.
Nice.
So yeah, including 3 that I produced. And yeah, so they're a very different scrub python in a lot of ways. So they're the most northern ranging and the most western, or of the most western ranging, but definitely the most northern ranging scrub python in Halmahera that we know of, and probably is the case. Very different pattern, color palette. Obviously, typically they're banded. Um, wide bands from a black, brown, tan to some yellow and orange color palette. Oftentimes, they'll have those really cool kind of orange eyes, dark tongues. Named after Tracy Barker, hence Tracy A. I know Dave Barker was on the expedition that discovered them. I'm pretty sure it was him, Cameron Tepedalin, Chad Brown, and others. And recent discovery as far as the species goes, I believe it was sometime around 2000. So,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, seriously, very crazy. You can, your AI can fact check me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely a more recent taxonomic discovery, the Halmaheras. And then for the longest time, they were the only known python species in captivity to have never been successfully reproduced, which created a lot of lore around them. And that was until 2018 when Blake Bauer at the Oklahoma City Zoo reproduced them successfully for the first time after years of trying. I think he had probably been attempting that same pair for about 5 years. He had gotten eggs that had gone bad once before and finally got the babies in 2018. So that was a monumental, groundbreaking reproduction. Did you get it?
Yeah, it looks like the species Tracy A is Dave and Tracy Barker. It's not giving me an actual year. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I mean, and my assumption was that the species was probably known, but it was more than likely just lumped into Somalia amethystina and was probably then separated as its own species at that point. So I don't think they discovered it, more than likely, considering that Halmahera is an island that has been, for one, occupied for quite a long time. And then also like blue-tongued skinks come from there regularly and stuff like that. But as far as becoming a unique taxa,
it was first recognized as a distinct species in the year 2000.
Hey, I was actually kind of right.
Although now here it says while collected earlier in the 1990s.
Sure, but it was probably just Somalia amethystina from
exactly
Halmahera at that, or maybe Morelia amethystina still by then.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, and I think maybe something to backpedal on. Obviously, when it comes to taxonomy, and I think this doesn't get said enough, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't change what these snakes are at all. But it's it's good to get it right. It's good to actually have the taxonomy reflect the true distribution. And when you consider all the factors, I mean, DNA is being used very heavily these days. But as far as all the aspects of the systematics of it is, scale counts and phenotype differences, bone structure, yada, yada. There's a lot of different things and then what's the definition of species? That's a huge discussion that is not agreed on by many, but I do believe the first classification of a scrub python was called some Liasis amethystinus. Back way, I think sometime in the 1800s, maybe early 1800s, and then the exact timeline I'm not fully aware of, but they were Morelia for the longest time, and then as of most recently, the genus Somalia for the scrubs, and then for a time adjacent species like Owen-Pally pythons. So a bit of an interesting evolution, especially like Liasis. Like if you look at what we call Liasis these days, they have no similarities whatsoever.
Nothing.
These terrestrial, sometimes semi-aquatic, very round, small-headed pythons compared to scrub pythons, which are like the opposite. So just very interesting how that all happens. But all right, back to Halmaheras. So so Blake Bauer produced them for the first time, and then I'm Not sure I'm going to get the timeline 100% right, but they were produced by Chuck Poland as well. He was the second in the US to successfully produce them. And I believe maybe the year after Chuck produced them, they were produced by two different people in Europe. One was Raphael Dahl, and the other gentleman's name is escaping me. I know that Raphael has produced them two or three times now, I believe. I think he had two clutches one year. I think it was the same year that Shane Adamson produced two clutches. And when Shane did it, I think his clutches just time came right before Raphael's, where he was the first to do multiple clutches in a season. And I think that Shane he had a year with one and a year with two clutches, I believe. Where Chuck did back-to-back years, one clutch, same female. And then I produced two clutches last year. And I believe they were also produced by somebody else in Europe last year. I'm almost certain of it. And again, I don't remember the individual's name. So it's getting to the point where like you kind of stop counting who has done it. It's been done enough. But production of Halmahera scrub pythons is quite the feat. And one of the things that was the most monumental, not only that they were produced for the first time, was the discovery that they're not born red or orange like the rest of scrub pythons are. They are born with pretty much adult color and pattern. And this was hypothesized by Rob Stone well before it was actually discovered to be the case. And it was for, if I'm telling the story correctly, based on his time with Bushmaster, most of the Halmaheras that came into the country came through Bushmaster. Some came through Strictly, but a majority, I don't want to say majority, but I would say a lot of them came through Bushmaster, which makes a lot of sense, especially considering that Cameron was part of the trip where they described them. Yep. Is that
yeah, this is a picture of one from Dr. Tillis.
Okay, that's what
this
I thought. I totally blanked. Last year, or 2024, Stephen Tillis produced him as well. So, sorry, I got to give credit where credit is due. So he was fourth in the U.S. and then I was fifth, I believe, would be how it would work.
You're still on that first hand.
Yes, I am. I am still. I'm either the thumb or the pinky, depending on how you started it. So probably the pinky. So yes, Stephen Tillis as well. So yeah, so I think that makes it 8 people in the world who have bred Halmahera scrub pythons. So yeah, pretty small group. But basically, Rob was kind of hypothesizing that these snakes were not born red like the other scrub pythons, on account of having received some young animals that had adult phenotype. And I'm pretty sure he got some backlash for that thought, and it was completely proven to be true. Frankly, they're born the darkest that they'll probably ever be. They just kind of continuously get brighter, but their color or their pattern comes out well defined, where, let's say with a bar neck that ends up being very heavily patterned, while it may show pattern as a baby, it's not nearly as stark as it ends up being once that animal has gone through its full OCC, where Halmaheras will start with that full adult pattern coloration. They still go through a color change. It's not like they don't change color, but it's a progressive lightening over the years, essentially.
For anybody listening, can you describe what OCC is?
Ontogenic color change. And essentially, the baby starts off one color and it changes to a different color as an adult. I think the main example that everyone looks to that's the most obvious is the green tree python, where either they start off red, they start off yellow, and they end up green. And with the best efforts of a lot of breeders, they do not end up green these days, but they're supposed to turn out green. And, so many species do it. And it's not always quite as extreme as that. You can look at a lot of the Pituophis genus. They go through a version of that where they start off kind of the more drab version of what they end up being. Carpet pythons, same way, where they start off kind of bland looking as babies, and then within the first year or so, they really explode into what their adult coloration is going to look like. And become much more beautiful. The scrub pythons almost entirely do that. Lots of colubrids, tons and tons of snakes will go through that process. So it's pretty cool. It's oftentimes adaptability in the habitat where, depending on the prey item that they are feeding on, wherever it's available, they kind of start being adaptive to where they would blend in for that prey type. And as soon as they move to a point of that girl is to my right now. That was one that Chuck produced that is now in my possession. And like with green tree pythons, the thought is when they're young, they're sitting much, much lower in vegetation right next to the ground, where green tree pythons really spend a lot of their lives pretty dang close to the ground as is. But especially as babies, amongst flowering plants and whatnot, where they're going to blend in a little bit better. As soon as they're eating larger prey, they're going to move up a little bit higher in the tree, and then they turn green to blend in with the higher levels of the tree. So stuff like that, essentially, is the thought process, where you can imagine with a scrub python, if it's spending a lot of the time on the ground in leaf litter, being, dark brick red, maroon, is going to be quite conducive to blending in with dirt and leaf litter. So.
And then, this is like the theory with these sort of things is it's just selected by nature, right? If you're better at camouflage, then you're not going to get picked off and your genes will get passed on.
Yeah, 100%. No doubt.
Yeah. So if you're watching, I kind of toggled between a baby and an adult, and just to sort of show Steven's point that they get lighter as they get older. A lot of contrast with the adult animal.
Yeah.
And absolutely stunning animals. I do want to have these in my collection one day.
Yeah, you need them.
Yeah, once you really start, get producing, at a rate where you have animals for sale. One day I would definitely like to add a couple of these to my collection, because I don't have any scrub pythons, and
it's a damn shame.
It is. But I am in Florida, so that does limit the amount of animals I can have. But I can have Clastolepis as well, which is another gorgeous one.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anything else to add on Traciae or Halmahera?
Sure. They do also come from a few islands that surround Halmahera, namely Morotai Island to the north, Bacan to the south. A lot of people may recognize Bacan for the retics that come from there as well. To my knowledge, Halmahera is the only part of the archipelago over there where retics and scrubs overlap. I'm not sure if they're sympatric as far as their distribution goes on Halmahera, but they do both live on Halmahera, and they kind of they possess traits that are similar to each other in relation to their species, where they're a lot darker than the rest of their species. Halmahera retics are very dark, very contrasty. They're my favorite retic. They're just gorgeous. I used to have a pair of them. Really nice, silver gray triangles on their sides, really bold pattern. And then Halmahera scrub pythons are quite dark as well, relative to a lot of the other types, especially right in the area where just south of there, you get the Moluccan scrub pythons that are pretty damn bright, especially when they're young. Another adaptation, whether it's an adaptation or just a coincidence, I'm very interested to know. But man, be hard to imagine this is a coincidence. Both species have small clutches of large eggs relative to their clades. And why? I don't know. I've never seen king horneye eggs, but I'd have to imagine that Halmahera scrubs have the largest eggs of scrub pythons, definitely of what I've produced. And
how big are we talking? Like, can you give me an idea, like based on something, an everyday object?
Good question. I would say what I always equate scrub eggs to is to like a ball python egg. You put a scrub python egg and a ball python egg next to each other, they're virtually identical. 20-25% bigger Halmahera egg.
Wow.
They're huge, and the babies are quite large as well. So yeah,
But
they
it's
have
interesting because
big
they're
eggs.
a smaller scrub python, right?
Right, exactly. Man, the first clutch that I got was the smallest female scrub I had ever gotten eggs from. She was like 6.5 feet, and one of the eggs, I have a picture of it. It was like legitimately majority of my hand from the base and tip of my middle finger, and like I don't have a small hand by any means. So that egg was giant. It was definitely over 7 inches long. It was fucking huge.
Mm.
So it was a big Halmahera egg. It was a little bit of a weird clutch, but yeah, huge egg. It was almost, they looked like colubrid eggs, damn near, how they were kind of like long and cylindrical proportionately speaking, but they were still like the same thickness as a regular scrub egg. So yeah, very, very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's another interesting quirk about Halmaheras. I guess behaviorally, they have some differences as well. They're generally a little bit more reclusive, to where with most scrub pythons, you open their enclosure and they're keyed in on you immediately, whatever that amounts to. They're just very you know visually oriented, perceptive animals. Halmaheras will get to the point where they become like that. Generally, they're just a little bit more subdued, where you could kind of work around them in a lot of instances. They're not going to come out quite as readily. As imports, they can be tricky. For the longest time, the main reason in hindsight why they were never bred in captivity was that larger imports just did not do very well and never got settled to the point of breeding. They kind of almost like, it's going to sound kind of harsh and terrible, but a lot of the times when they come in imports, they really do just kind of seem dead for quite a while. They
Mm.
have this like glazed over eye thing going on, and they're very, very reclusive, very reluctant to take food off of tongs. To where a lot of Halmaheras, man, you're just leaving that prey item in there overnight for the first like year plus, and then all of a sudden, switch just flips and they become a scrub python for whatever reason. They're like, "Oh, cool, I'm here now. I'm good. We're doing it." The captive bred animals don't obviously go through that process, but with wild caughts, it's every single one. So
Mm.
they do require a decent amount of patience if you do want to work with wild caughts.
And so, what are they like as babies? Like, how has it been raising Halmahera scrubs? From
Yeah,
hatchlings. What's that experience been
this
like?
the same as any other scrub python. Yeah,
Interesting.
pretty quick to take food. I start mine on live just because I can, and I have better success doing it. But yeah, they either start on a live hopper or live African soft fur of equivalent size. Honestly, most of the time I have success getting them onto ASFs first, and then switching them over to mice. I usually try mice first, but frequently I'll end up just going back and forth once they're eating consistently. So depending on what I have available to me at the time. So and then usually a few meals in, they're just so ready to go that the live isn't necessary anymore, and I can just do a
Mm.
pre-kill or a frozen thaw, and they're just take it right away. So yeah, raising them it's been a lot of fun, but really has not been too different than other scrub pythons. They're very well mannered, but a lot of scrubs are when they're young and old as well. But some of them can start off being a little bit defensive when they're small. Not these guys.
They kind of come out of the egg pretty chill.
At least the three that I'm raising. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Are you, what scrub python is your favorite scrub python?
Yeah, it's tough. Overall, I have to say Barnex, and that's for a number of reasons. But I think the primary one would really just be the variability of that species. And within Barnex scrub pythons, you can get like 20 different, maybe even 30 or 40 unique phenotypic looks within them. And I think the line breeding potential in those snakes is probably up there with the highest in the snake world. Not even just talking about pythons or scrub pythons specifically. So they're so beautiful, they're so variable, and they're just generally very chill snakes as well. They're the first scrub pythons I got, so that's probably part of it too. But yeah, they're just amazing all around.
Mm. Yeah, they're are they the smallest?
No, they're pretty much average size scrub python, 9 to 11 feet. Most of them hitting right around 10.
Really, a Halmahera?
Oh, I think I meant Barneck. No, yeah, Halmahera definitely smaller, generally speaking. I think the female. I actually don't remember which one of the two, the male or the female that is at OKC Zoo. Blake told me is like over 12 feet long. So, and he sent me a picture.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, my God, yeah, no doubt that snake is over 12 feet long. But also think about it, that animal is probably over 15 years old. So
Jeez.
it's an old animal, and um, it's just a big animal. But my largest adult that I have currently is the one that Chuck produced his two clutches from, and she is 9 feet long, and that's not a big scrub python. Like relatively, it's a huge Halmahera, but it's not really a big scrub python. So the majority of them are like right around the 8 foot mark. Some 7 that are of adult size and age. So definitely a smaller scrub python, but not quite Tannenbar. Kind of in between
Mm.
Tannenbars and the rest of them.
And do they, when they're at that size, a Halmahera, do they fit into, like a small area pretty well because
Oh,
of how
sure.
slender they are?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay.
If you can, picture those like Reptile Basics hides at from corner to corner, probably 12 inches,
Yeah.
and like they can fit under one of those for sure.
That's crazy.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That is nuts. They're like a
Yeah, it is.
shoelace.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, they're at that size. They're like eating large rats, and they're perfectly content on. I've never fed a Halmahera or anything bigger than a large rat.
Even a large rat. I mean, that has to put a substantial lump in them, right?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
They handle it pretty well.
Do you like, is that ever an issue, regurgitation, if you feed too large of a male with scrubs or a
Man,
meal rather?
I'd have to imagine if you feed a scrub python a large meal and then it gets really cold like immediately and doesn't warm back up soon, that you might have a regurgitation. But uh, look at some pictures of scrub pythons in Australia that have just taken down a full size wallaby, and they look
Mm.
like they are about to explode. They don't explode. Like they can take down some giant prey and handle it like no issue. Uh, the question would then be, is that necessary? Whole different discussion. I don't feed giant prey items. I just don't see a reason to. You definitely run into problems both as far as health goes and reproduction if you get your scrub pythons too big. So really, by the time they're eating jumbo rats or like the size where they can eat jumbo rats, they may not even ever get jumbo rats again. Like it's just not necessary to pump them full of food, or if they do, it's on like an infrequent basis.
Okay. All right. You ready to go on to class Telepus, or do you have anything else to say about the Homs?
Yeah, we probably can. I mean, I've inevitably there's more, but I would say maybe just to end it off, they do, at least from all accounts, seem to be a least concerned species. That really is the case with all scrub pythons. In the wild, they're super plentiful.
Mm.
Bolins might be the exception, but then does that come down to, are there not that many bolins, or is it just really, really hard to find bolins? So, it's definitely really, really hard to find bolins. Whether that reflects to their actual population is a different story, but yeah, scrub pythons they're an apex predator for the most part wherever they're coming from, and once they reach a larger size, nothing's messing with them, which probably lends to why they're such confident snakes and so fun to keep. But that's definitely something to mention as part of the whole discussion. But yeah, let's head over to class Telepus.
Yeah. So class Telepus, I'm interested in because again, it's another species. Selfishly, I can have them here in Florida, but they're not readily reproduced very often.
No, they're not. They've probably reached the status within scrub pythons. So if we're not talking bolins, of like the holy grail scrub python. And it is reflective of in their price for sure. And their availability, it has gone down significantly in the last 7 years or so. You hear stories from back in the day. This is a story that Patrick loves to say, to tell whenever he's on a podcast with me about seeing Moluccans on the Bushmaster list for like $75 a piece or whatever in like the early 2000s. And yeah, they were super cheap back in the day and no less beautiful than they are now. They just weren't appreciated for God knows what reason. When they are in their prime color-wise, I think there's a very strong argument that they are the most beautiful snake on the planet.
Wow.
And I mean, they're a Lakers jersey. They're gold and purple, and the nicest ones when they're at their nicest are just. It's like unbelievable that is actually a snake. They're they're amazing. The only downside that comes along with them is that they are the only scrub python that actually declines in appearance with age. Aside from them,
interesting.
Every other scrub python will be the nicest they'll ever look tomorrow. They just continue to get better and better with age, where Moluccans, they peak at about 3 years old. And then from there, it's kind of a constant decline, and particularly with the females, where once a female goes through her first hormonal cycle, right, exactly. Tell me a snake that is like objectively better looking than that snake in the entire world.
Yeah, so I just pulled up a picture for anybody that's listening audio only. This is just vibrant yellow with a pattern that's
not
really
an edited picture. That is like a peak fire up under a good light of a prime Moluccan scrub python.
Yeah, and it has this very reduced, subdued pattern mixed in with the yellow. But I mean, holy cow! Like I don't even know what word to use to describe that yellow. It's sort of a. I don't.
It's probably what's in the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah. Well put. Well put.
Yeah.
And how many of these do you keep?
Currently I have 3.4. 3.4. Yes.
And do you think this is going to be the year?
I sure hope so. Gosh, I've gotten slugs twice in my breeding career, totaling 40, I think, slugs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. So what are you doing wrong there? And I don't mean that towards you as like a personal attack, but it's like, I was recently talking to a friend and they were talking about adjusting the temperature by like a degree or two during ovulation and not wanting to slug out because they went too high on the temperature. And it's like, it made me, when he said that
seemed like a little bit too analysis paralysis-y right there.
Well, but could it be that, could it be something like that where it's like these?
Definitely not, because they were overweight. These females were ones that I acquired as adults, and the friend of mine who raised them just, not with bad intention, just grew them way too fast and way too big. And especially the female that dumped 25 slugs on me. Like, jeez. I thinned her out for like a year and a half before she even cycled, where I pretty much didn't feed her. And when I fed her, I gave her small meals. But that's why when I talk about feeding scrub pythons, I'm like, you got to feed them, but then you got to stop. Like once they're a few years old, you really got to take it back, because you can get there quickly. And once a female is too big, it's really, really, really hard to get her back. So that was, there could have been other problems, but I think the primary issue is the weight of the females, where they just were carrying way too much body fat to develop proper eggs. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking. I mean,
yes, it was. And the first clutch was dumped on me on my birthday of all days. So that was the
Mm.
fucking most awesome birthday present I've ever gotten.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yes. Oh boy, indeed.
Man, 40 slugs. And
Yep.
you attribute that to being overweight. The female
Yeah.
was overweight.
100%. Both of
Mm.
them. Yeah. So,
And how are they like how are they in captivity? Are they pretty laid back? Are they
so Moluccans, not that this is entirely like a universal truth, but for me, it is the only species or locality of scrub python that I've never had a poor mannered individual of. Every single Moluccan I've had has been handleable, um, and which makes it all the better. I know people who've had Moluccans that are not the friendliest, but this is just my experience with probably upwards of 15 individuals, definitely over 10. So that it's one of the other cool aspects about them. They do very well as imports. Most scrub pythons do, with the exception of Halmaheras and Biaks. And Moluccans are just the same as the rest of them, where they establish fairly well in captivity. So even wild caughts will be really nice and chill.
Hmm. Here's another one.
Yeah.
And is this an older animal where it's not quite as yellow, but it's still gorgeous? I mean, it's like an
Exactly.
amber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an incredible yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that its color is diminished.
Yeah. That's that male like looking really good and fired up. It kind of
Yeah.
goes with their shed cycle. Like right after they shed, you're like, holy shit, who put the snake here? And then kind of until their next shed cycle, they kind of progressively will. You see how like from the dorsal down, it's kind of like a darker shade, and then it gets brighter at the side.
Mm-hmm.
That darker shade around the dorsal will just kind of keep getting darker and darker brown until it sheds next. And then it'll pop up gold again and get a little bit darker brown, gold again. Where the sides kind of stay, but that's also a male. Where if a female at that age looked like that, you'd be like, wow, this is the nicest female of all time. So, but he was a fucking fantastic snake. So, yeah.
Is he no longer with you?
Unfortunately, no. Lost that snake last year. Very like just out
R.I.P.,
of
buddy.
nowhere. Yeah, it was rough.
Any idea how old he was?
Oh, he was probably over 10 years old, but he was part of that group that was raised too quickly. Maybe that had something to do with it, but sometimes, man, yeah, you just all of a sudden like, oh, what the fuck? And there's no rhyme or reason that's obvious to us. So obviously something happened. It's not like nothing happened, but in something that could have been detected, there's no way. So
yeah, really incredible looking.
yeah, really cool dorsal stripe on that individual. Yeah, he was about 11 feet long. He was a good size snake.
I'm having a hard time understanding why I can have them, but I can't have amethystina.
Don't complain about it.
Just, I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you. I mean, couldn't tell you why you can't have amethystina. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe there's ever been one credible report of any scrub python found somewhere in Florida.
Yeah.
So, just banning them for fun? Like,
yeah.
there have been rock pythons, they're not a lot. There've been retics, not a lot. Obviously, berms.
Yeah.
I mean, have there been anacondas even?
No, I think that anytime I think that they found an anaconda and euthanized it and did a necropsy and found like lab rats in it, just white fur.
One escaped. Yeah.
Yeah. Or set loose, whatever, and even the retics, there's no breeding population of retics in Florida, so it's
just rocks and berms.
Yeah. Which I get it, but
there's retics breeding in Puerto Rico, which is pretty interesting. And they're morphs. You find morph retics in the wild in Puerto Rico. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I wish that the FWC would restructure that and make it, I understand that Burmese pythons are very affordable animals, but if they did like a chipping program where you had to chip them and there was a serial number that's tied to your name in that animal, and if you have to pay $1,000 to have that to go through that permitting process, I'd do that. And I understand that berms can be very affordable, and if you made it where people could go out and catch them like Pokemon, I think that would be a positive thing if it was like, yeah, you can go catch them and keep a baby as a pet, but you have to chip them and you have to pay the state $1,000.
Well, let's start with like maybe $100. Let's not bargain our way to the top for at start. But I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm just worried about myself, right, Steven? But if $1,000 to keep a berm is a barrier to entry, and you go, that's too much money. Well, guess what? It's going to be too much money when you have to house that thing too.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of my thought process there.
Yeah.
And I understand that doing it with bar necks would suck, right? If you had to pay $1,000 for every bar neck you have, but
yeah, sure. I mean, if it was necessary, then that'd be one thing, but it's not. So
yeah. So anyway, Class Lepus, you're going to breed him this year. It's going to be awesome. You're going to knock it out of the park.
Let's hope. Finally, 6 years later, can finally say that it was accomplished. So yeah, that to me is like my main goal in herpetoculture right now, as far as like one breeding thing to check off the list. I mean, not to say it so like dismissively, but the one thing that I've been trying to do for the longest that's been like of most importance to me has definitely been Moluccans.
Yeah, well, and what do they look like as babies when they come out? What is are they red?
Yeah, they're red for the most part. I've seen some babies that are born with adult coloration, like very very dark adult coloration, kind of like Halmaheras, but then they're definitely red babies as well. They haven't really been produced enough in captivity for me to really say one way or another, but I would say I'd err on the side of calling them red babies, but they're not all red babies. So like that one that you pulled up, that first picture, I got that snake off of a table at the Arlington Reptile Show before it was Dallas, and it was labeled as a sarong and was in a pile of Southerns, and that were also labeled sarong, which is interesting. And wow. It didn't look like a Moluccan at all. It was super dark. It hadn't had its first shed yet. It was skinny, but I saw the pattern on, like the lack of pattern on the neck, and then the pattern change down the body. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a Moluccan. And it was $350 in 2019. And I believe the ones that Dan just had at the table at Pomona were $2,500. So it tells you where that market's gone in the meantime, which is actually a very good price these days. Because there have been some on Morph Market that have been like $3,000 or even $3,500 that did not look very good. And I'm like, oh boy, oof, that's rough. But so yeah, basically snuck a Moluccan off of that table, and he ended up turning out to be fantastic. So, wow. But I say that story to emphasize that animal was not red. It was essentially brown and kind of different brown, where it would have ended up being gold. Over about 4 sheds, it turned gold and purple. And I actually had somebody tell me that it wasn't a Moluccan up front. They said it was a Wamina. And a couple of sheds later, I'm like, I've never seen a Wamina that's this gold and this purple and with this lack of a neck stripe. So I was right ultimately. But yeah, all that to say, that baby was not red. So they're not all red babies, but they definitely are for the most part.
Do you still have that animal?
I actually, unfortunately, don't have that animal anymore. Yeah, I was kind of forced to part with it to gain my freedom. So.
Okay. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. But yeah, just fucking gorgeous snake. So,
Man. Uh, you ready to get into Nata?
well, no, let me go a little further on them.
Okay, sure.
They are, while they are an island species, they are not small. They're and people have tried to kind of hypothesize in the past, or even uh, kind of preach that they're a smaller island dwarf scrub python. No way, definitely not the case. They are, in my opinion, the heaviest bodied of the scrub pythons proportionally. They're a little bit more round than, say, a barneck or a southern, kind of go in between a barneck and a Boland's. They have the beefiest heads. You see them, these giant balls of muscle on their head, almost like a cyclura. So different head structure. That's really cool, especially females. Females will really get like these big beefy heads when they're adults. They high pattern individuals are pretty uncommon within Moluccans, and well, I have one animal right now that has very, very high pattern. It's a male. I do anticipate he'll maintain a lot of that into adulthood. I do believe with females, once they go through that first cycle, a lot of that pattern really loses its contrast. So that's, something interesting to consider. There's more patternless individuals. There's dorsal striped individuals, some that have kind of like little rosettes all like down the sides of their body. So they're variable within their pattern. Within their color, they're really not that variable. The only variability comes within the axanthic form. So there are axanthic Moluccans. It's a recessive trait, and it is, to everything I can deduce, a fairly common occurrence in the wild. They're quite similar in ways, but then also just from a geography standpoint to Tannenbar scrub pythons, where the axanthic form is the most common in the wild now. So makes a lot of sense. A lot of scrub pythons have genetic axanthic floating around. Retics, same way. I mean, damn near every retic has its own anery going on. So, Tannenbars, there's a lot of very axanthic looking Halmaheras, some axanthic looking Southerns, but definitely the two where it's like a for sure genetic thing are within Moluccans and within Tannenbars. So that is that. And they've been bred small handful of times in captivity. There's a breeder in France who I won't be able to pronounce his name. I'm not sure there's even one vowel in his name on Facebook, but we call him JC. Kind of, what's his last name on Facebook. But he's produced them, I don't even know how many times, quite a few. And then most recently in the U.S. was Marcel Hawkins in 2021, produced a clutch that many people got babies from, myself included. To my top left here of a female that was from that clutch. Patrick Holmes got some, Brandon Wheeler got some, MJ got some that ended up with Carly, et cetera, et cetera. So they're out there. And yeah, that's before that. You may be looking at early 2010s for the most recent production in the US before that. And then they've been produced in Europe kind of more steadily than the US. So I believe it was Anthony Caponetta who produced the first ones in captivity in the early 2000s here in the US.
Okay.
So,
and have you been able to sort of pick their brains on what their secret sauce may have been?
Not really, but frankly, I think it's just having good animals that are well settled into your system. I don't think it's anything special. I think it's been more of a lack of trying than a specific thing that made it work. A big issue that a lot of people have had with breeding all scrub pythons historically has been underfeeding, where there's almost kind of like weird dogma that set in with some scrub keepers, especially in the 2010s, of like, oh yeah, well, I feed my scrubs only 8 times a year. Oh, I do 6 times a year. I don't feed mine at all. Like there's this race to the bottom of how infrequently could you feed your scrub pythons. And while keeping them lean is very important, also providing them with proper nutrition, especially females when they're cycling, is super important. And like one breeder in particular fasted his snakes through breeding season. No wonder he had such low success. So there was a lot of that going on of everyone kind of wanted to be able to breed scrubs this one way, and it just fucking didn't work. And they just kind of stuck with it. And because of that, there were so many scrub pythons that went into hands of people who intended to breed them that just never did. Moluccans included. So
you're doing a lot of trash talking right now, Stephen.
Hey, it's not trash talk. It's true. So
I think it is.
Find me scrub pythons in collections that were produced in the 2010s.
Yeah.
I could probably count. You could probably count on one hand. So
was that just the pendulum swinging? Just people thinking like, oh, we're feeding them way too much, and then we're gonna feed them less. And
yeah, I believe so. I mean, there was an issue for a while, and Rob Christian mentioned it on one of our episodes. Where for a while there was a kind of a thought process within scrub pythons, like, you're going to get these animals, you're going to raise them up 5-6 years, you're going to breed them, and then the females are going to die. And I think a lot of that had to do with feeding a scrub python like a retic, where you're just overpowering this animal's system, and then they're just burning out because they were, they're 5 years old and they're 12 feet long, and they're like that, and they're can barely move. Where a retic can withstand that kind of feeding, not a scrub python. So, and then pendulum swing. But I think then also now, I think a lot of the reason why we're seeing a lot more success is just there's a lot more people who are trying. Scrub pythons are as popular now as they've ever been, and only getting more popular. I think in 2024 there were like 20 clutches of scrub pythons in the U.S. in the year, which no doubt more than the entire 2010s in the U.S. as a decade in 1 year. So that's just more people trying, and a lot of people who bred them don't have very many snakes. So a lot more specific attention was able to go to those scrub pythons to be able to have success with them.
So if somebody wanted to get a Moluccan right now, your best bet would be an import.
Yeah, it's your only bet at this point. Yep. And they kind of, the quotas on Moluccans have been a little bit all over the place. There were some years where there were zero quotas to the U.S. There's never many though. Like if 10 come in a year, that's a heavy year. So they're pretty uncommon. Yeah.
So that's what's driving that price.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a gentleman reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to buy one off him. And I think the price was probably pretty reasonable. I wish I could remember his name. I think he was a listener of the show, so he might hit me up when he hears this. But yeah, he was like, hey, I know you're in Florida if you want a Moluccan. And I was like, I don't really want a Moluccan, but I think the price was not bad.
Okay. Yeah.
I should have directed him towards you.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of the times now with the Moluccans, I think the way that the price is being dictated for the imports has a lot less to do with what they're leaving it Indo for, and much more of what people here think they can get for them. So,
is that similar with the Bolins?
Probably to at least some degree, but I really don't know what they're I know they're charging a lot more in Indo than they used to, because they've discovered via internet what they're being sold for here. And they're like, wait, what? Like, that's crazy. So you're making that much off of it? Well, we're going to ask for more. So as they should. But yeah, it's a similar phenomenon, but I'm not exactly sure how the numbers work out on the Bolins.
What is the snake that I can see on over your right shoulder in the top right?
Is a Biak scrub python.
Oh, okay. We'll get to them.
We will.
Is it a he or a she?
That is the girl right there.
She only popped out to me because she did like a head bob. and it like kind of. Do you ever see your snakes do that?
No.
Some of my some
What
of
makes
my
sense?
some of my jungles will, if I walk by, I'll see like this little like kind of
It's kind of
head.
looking at you, a little startled.
Yeah, like
Hey, what's
this.
up?
Yeah, but they'll do it like repeatedly.
Hmm.
It's weird.
Interesting.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
think that one might have just like burped or something. Yours. It did
You're like,
something.
yeah, what? Okay. Yeah.
All right. So what else, anything else on the Moluccans?
I think we're probably good. Probably good on Moluccans for now.
All right. So Nata.
Yes. 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 The true mini scrub python.
Mm,
So yeah, that is an adult male. That's one of
all right.
mine. And
So I have
he,
a picture up now. It almost reminds me of as far as coloration, sort of a reverse of Moluccan, sort of, like there's yellow, but it's more subdued than the
yeah,
pattern, which is darker.
yeah, he's got a very, very similar look to. Well, it's almost kind of like right in between of an Aru and a Moluccan. Um, him individually has a very actually kind of like almost Key Island effect to him as well. But so yeah, Tannenbar scrubs, they are the mini scrub essentially from the island of Tannenbar, which is a small island, and they they can get, these snakes can all get bigger. I would say on average, a Tannenbar scrub python is about 5 to 7 feet long, with the majority of them being probably on the smaller end of that size distribution. And the biggest one I've ever seen in person was a 9 foot individual that Chris Foley had, but she was, I believe, over 20 years old too. So a lot of the times with these really, really big scrub pythons, they're old. It just takes them quite a while to actually reach that size. So they come in four distinct phenotypes that have variability within each phenotype, but essentially this animal, if anyone's watching that's on the screen, is what is known as a xanthic patterned tannenbar. This is the dominant wild type phenotype right here, where
Mm,
the color is kind of on a spectrum of goldish brown, yellow, orange, and the animal has a pattern that is kind of, you know, diamondy dots and side dashes and stuff like that. Not really banded like most scrub pythons. Much more of a southern clade island type phenotype. So, take for instance Moluccans or Keys, Arus. They all kind of have this pattern phenotype going on to one degree or another, with the change going down lower in the body. His tail is like Moluccan tail through and through, pretty
mm.
much. Very purple tail on this guy. He's one of my favorite tannenbars I've ever seen in pictures or in person. So to be able to actually have him in the collection is just absolutely ridiculous. Um, then there are two recessive mutations that exist within nature over there, and one of them is patternless, and one of them is axanthic. So uh, the interesting kind of biological case study is that that axanthic patternless double recessive is the most common phenotype in the wild.
Mm.
So why is that? Can't really say for sure. From my knowledge, a lot of the island has been developed for palm oil plantations. So you'd have to imagine in a jungle. So that's a xanthic patternless. So the dominant color recessive pattern. You'd have to imagine.
Basically a brown snake.
Yeah, she's kind of like on like what I was saying. That end of the spectrum of kind of like a goldish brown. But yes, uh, in person she's a little bit more gold than that. Um, so you have to imagine though, if that snake that we saw previously that was, orange and purple with pattern on it, might blend in a little bit more in a more dense jungle. If they're having to adapt to a more cleared habitat, being patternless and silver might be a little bit more adaptive. So that double recessive has become the most plentiful form in the wild, and therefore the most plentiful form that is imported. Um, I have yet to breed these successfully. Eric Hernandez, as of recent, has been having great success. I think he's had 4 clutches now of Tannenbars over the
I need
last.
to get him on.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a good episode for sure. Yeah, I did a show with him early days, a little over a year and a half ago, probably. So yeah, he's a cool guy and doing great work. So other than that, though, they were one of the first pythons to be bred in captivity, or scrub pythons to be bred in captivity. Definitely not one of the first pythons to be bred in captivity.
Their head structure is really different from the other scrubs too.
Quite different.
I mean,
no doubt.
yeah, they have, it's almost like if a scrub python crossed with like a, I don't know, Antaresia or something.
Yeah.
Like it looks, it's more compact, more
Yep.
reined in. You know, they don't have those accentuated features that you commonly see with the really big eyes and that sort of intense long face. They have a more small face.
Yeah, no question. Definitely a more slight head structure than the other scrubs. So, but yeah, they're fantastic, man. They were produced, I believe, the first by the Barkers in the late '90s, and then I believe Ryan Young was second in, I think, 2001. So they were being produced in the very early days of scrub breeding, and they were really one of the more common species for quite a while. When I was first researching scrub pythons and getting into them, so about 2016, you went on Fauna or King Snake, you could pretty reliably see ads for wild caught import Tannenbars. And then when I got into scrub pythons, I didn't start with them because they had one of the poorer reputations as far as temperament went. And by the time I was a little bit more comfortable with scrub pythons and would probably have gotten Tannenbars, gone. So from about 2017 until 2022, if one came in, it skipped my radar because I did not see one Tannenbar scrub python enter the country. So it was about 6 years. And the first time that I was able to get my hands on them, I did. So, which kind of sucked. I got what was supposed to be a 2.2. It was 3.1, and the female died the next day.
Oh.
So, and I got no refund. Guy was like, nope, go fuck yourself. So
that's not kind.
No, not at all. So that was rough. But that the first male that you showed, he did come out of that group. So I was very fortunate there. And my other adult male that I have now, who's a axanthic patterned, he's really like a very light version of the morph. When he's fired up, he's like bluish purple. He's super cool. So then over the years following, so 22 and 23, and then a little bit in 24, some imports were coming in. I was able to get my hands on this girl, another female, and put my little group together. So right now I just have 2 pairs of Tannenbar scrubs. I have one of each phenotype. So both patterned and patternless axanthic and xanthic, which is pretty cool. So there are not very many xanthic animals. Most of the animals in the States are axanthic, and then even less so patterned xanthic. So I got very, very lucky to get that male.
Yeah, it's I mean, like right now, 2026, if you could find one, what are you looking to pay for a captive bred versus a wild caught?
Man, captive bred would be whatever the hell Eric would want to charge you. But wild caught, I've seen quite a range. But I would say in general, expect to pay like $700 on the low end and like maybe $1,200 on the high end depending on phenotype. So the xanthic patternless would probably be closer to the bottom. If you were to find a xanthic patterned, it would be on the high end of that price range, maybe even upwards of $1,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. I just pulled up scrub pythons on Morph Market, and at first I was like, it's kind of low that you have to go to other pythons, and then it's just a broad category of all scrubs. But dude, there's 16 listings in
Right.
there for all
Yeah,
scrub pythons.
it's never a very packed page. And it's almost always either 80% to 100% Southern scrubs.
Yeah, there's a lot of Southerns here. I do see an Azanthic patternless Tannenbar for $675.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And there's another one that is in pounds. It's 599 pounds, mate.
Nice. Very good.
So
very good. So yeah, but then man, captive bred, I don't know. That's a good question. Definitely more than any of that I just mentioned. So I would probably expect captive breds to be between $1,500 and $2,000 a piece.
And basically, you're going to have to know somebody that's working on breeding them and say like, "Hey, I want a pair."
Probably, yeah. They're quite high demand in terms of scrubs, especially considering that they're small. So anybody who can't house a 9-foot snake can probably house one of these. They're legal everywhere. So anywhere that, like Florida, where amethystina are not permitted, you can keep Nada. The one thing that I would say from my limited experience is that of all of the scrubs as imports, they were definitely the most skittish. Their behavior, especially early on, much more was equatable to a white-lipped python instead of a scrub python. Very quick.
It must be White Lisa. That's got to be White Lisa.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But, dude, I think she handles them, and I might be wrong. I'm sorry, Lisa, but I think she wears a hoodie so they can bite at her head, and she doesn't get bit on the face.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But yeah, so they were very, very skittish. Most scrub pythons, if they're not chill, will stand their ground with you. These guys did not. They were very quick to turn around, run the other direction. And then if you were to grab them at that point, you're going to get bit and probably musked on as well. But for whatever reason, like 2 years later, they were all just like, yeah, we're cool now. We're chill.
Interesting.
So all 4 of my Tannenbars are very handleable, but they weren't always that way. That the first male that you showed is the Xanthic patterned. He was chill from day one. The other 3 not so much. But now all of a sudden they're fine. So when I clean them, I just take them out, hold them. They're just chilling. So
no issue.
None at all. It just took a while of just leaving them alone and letting them kind of just calm down. So
where do you fall on that spectrum? Like, sometimes if I have a particularly, defensive animal, there's part of me that thinks I need to habituate them to my presence. And then there's the other part of me that thinks just let them be and eventually they'll grow out of this. What are your thoughts on that?
I think either is a fine approach. I think ultimately the more calm and secure an animal can be in your care, the better chance you will have of reproducing it naturally. Just, anybody who understands even on a very cursory level, cortisol would be able to be like, yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. So, I think you could take really either approach. I think as long as you're consistent in what you're doing, the animal will catch on to it. The one thing that I will always say, though, is I think when it comes to establishing a relationship with an animal, you got to do everything in your power to not let it bite you. I don't know, this is from my experience, snakes that do bite me are quite the uphill battle compared to snakes that try to bite me and are not successful with it. So it's something about that contact actually happening that like reinforces that like, oh, this actually did what I wanted it to. I was scared. I bit the scary thing and scary thing went away. Let me do that again next time I get scared. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of not by any means necessary, make sure the snake is like not in a compromised position. But when I handle, whether it be just hooking an animal, putting it on the floor while I work its enclosure or handling it with a hook, I don't even do the like sweatshirt, if it bites me, whatever thing. Like this snake is just not biting me. It's just not going to happen. And that reinforces the animal not biting you.
How many times have you been bit and wrapped by a substantial scrub python?
Substantial? Zero.
Zero. You're just not letting that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've only had that happen to me twice ever by any snake. One was in feeding and one wasn't. The one that wasn't feeding was probably still to this day my worst snake bite. It was a Dominican red mountain boa, and he like hit a nerve on my thumb. I've never experienced a pain quite like that in my life. Of like
Oh,
just where my body was just like, get it off, get it off, get it off. And I was trying to be like all cool and like take a picture of it, but I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get this snake off of me. That thing
yeah.
that hurt. I've never had another bite like that. But the other one was a scrub python in a tub that was in a top tub, and I was feeding kind of quickly, and it just jumped right past the tongs and got me on my hand or whatever, and went to the sink, ran the water, detached, put it back, fed it, moved on. It didn't really hurt all that bad, but this one was maybe a 5 foot barneck, so 2-year-old young animal.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've never knock on PVC again. I've never had a
Yeah.
bad scrub bite.
I
Had some kind
I
of
had a
rough scrub bites, but nothing there. I was like, oh shit.
yeah. I've had I had a bad month, maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, where it was I spotted python, bit and wrapped my hand. My
Ugh.
yeah, that I mean, and it was like right in the webbing of my hand, and uh
Mm.
and then my Macklot's python, same thing, opened up. I just opened up the tub and I think I held him and it seemed like everything was good or he seemed really chill and I was like, "Oh, this is a good interaction." And then just bite and wrap. And
Yeah.
and then to finish it off, like a little bit later was a boa imperator that is
Ooh, that
probably,
could not have felt good.
dude, it was terrible. And I can't really get a good idea of how big she is. I want to say, we'll say between like 4 and 6 foot, 4 and 5.5 foot, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I reached in. I can't remember if I was grabbing a bowl or fixing a plant. But she was so, it looked like she was dead asleep, like totally tranquil, placid, and just got my thumb, dude.
Ugh.
And like I yoinked and then immediately realized, nope, she's got me. And I gave her my hand and she wrapped all the way up my forearm. And yeah, my son grabbed the Listerine in a spray bottle and I gave her a little squirt and she came off. But oh, her jaw was all messed up because like her fangs were all like tangled up from the release because
Yeah.
she was all contorted. And so I had to gently like help get her mouth unstuck after the fact. And like my blood was all over her body.
Oh shoot.
And I then saw how long her teeth are. And they are preposterously long teeth,
Yes.
and
No doubt.
that was like the final straw where I was like, all right, new goal is to not get bit here. Cause this was a bad month where I got all these food responses that I don't know why it happened, but it did. And I don't want it to happen anymore.
Yeah. That's a good plan, is to not have that happen anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bad month.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a pretty damn bad month.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, not great. Yeah,
Dude. And that my thumb is still healing and like the skin like peels away sort of around the wounds and everything. And I mean, there was bruising on my thumb. I didn't know my thumb could get bruised.
oof.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Yep.
Do you have anything else to say about Tannenbar scrubs?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd say, as far as kind of comparing a lot of these scrubs from the standpoint of being imports, they're one of the ones that is kind of middle ground of not the easiest, not the hardest to establish. It seems. So if you're able to get import tannin bars, then great. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a super sensitive species, but maybe not quite as hardy as like a Barneck or a Moluccan as an import. So, something to just kind of keep in mind is that obviously in general, if you can get captive bred, that's preferable, but not always practical. But if you're going to get tannin bars, and if you are going to get wild caught, it's definitely not like an impossible hurdle.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for the big baby jammy,
Yes.
the amethystina?
The mother load. Yes, indeed. Let's get going.
All right. So like first things first with the amethystina, are these all localities or are they subspecies of amethystina?
I mean, currently they're all just localities under this one mother species, Somalia.
Is that crazy to you?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it just seems nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got some pictures here. I mean,
Mhm.
so this is the same as this is the same as this
Yeah.
is the same. Like, and please,
Yeah.
if you're not watching on YouTube, I just gave like 3 or 4 different examples of amethystina, and they are radically different animals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they are. It's definitely, you know, case in point, green tree pythons, same.
Mm.
So
All right,
yep.
so let's get into it. Amethystina.
Yeah. So basically, the species, as is currently described, encapsulates like Papua New Guinea, east to west, north to south, and then basically all the islands that are right around it. So the Raja Ampat archipelago in the northwest, Biak and Numfor, if there are there, surrounding islands like there, Bismarck, and then all the way. I can speak on it because Ari has spoken publicly. When he did his work on Goodenough Island, they found him a scrub python there. So far east off of PNG, there are scrub pythons that fall into this kind of amethystina distinction. Off of the southwest, you got Key and Aru, where there are these snakes as well. There are amethystina in Australia as well. Basically, the far north extent of the range. I'm not exactly sure where the cutoff is. I know there's some geographic barrier between Kinghorni and amethystina, but the Iron Range is kind of, I think, where a lot of the ones that they have in captivity over there are coming from. Frankly, they're much more beautiful than Kinghorni. The ones that I've seen have almost kind of like a orange and purple coloration over a more typical Kinghorni like pattern, and then also they're smaller as well, kind of like amethystina. So there's a couple islands in between, the Northern Cape and Papua New Guinea, where there are scrub pythons as well. You can find them on INAT pictures that are, not the best, but definitely show what those snakes are. So, I'm honestly not even sure if the Bismarck scrubs are even fully really described in science at the moment. There's photos on INAT. They just look very strange, very different. They're almost more carpet python looking than like take a carpet python's pattern, put it on a scrub body. They're very weird. They're beautiful snakes, but obviously there are none that are in captivity anywhere in the entire world. So as far as the ones that we have in captivity, obviously I'll go through all of them, but just to kind of list them off up front, we have the barneck scrub pythons. We have the northern scrub pythons, historically referred to as Wamena jayapura as well, the Biak scrub pythons, and then the southern scrub python clade, which is very diverse and complicated, which also encapsulates the ones that are referred to as the highlands or orange highlands, which we'll get into that, why that's a misnomer, but why they're also kind of distinctive and unique. You have then the southern island types, so the Key Aru, which are distinctive onto their own. That's kind of what we have to work off of. So starting northwest with the barnecks. So the barneck scrub pythons, my personal favorite, are from the Bird's Head Peninsula in the Raja Ampat archipelago. Barneck, that's actually my favorite barneck in my collection. That's a girl I produced in 2024. And
mine as well. I mean, and I just grabbed this off your page. We didn't, figure this out beforehand. We were very ill prepared. We talked about everything but reptiles before we started recording.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, like a khaki tan coloration and just like black bars. If they're not black, they're super dark brown.
Let me see if I have a recent picture of her I can send to you for you to put up. She is just mind blowing, truly mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, next level. You know what's funny is as we're recording this, my what's wrong with me right now? My brain is broken.
You're glitching.
Yeah, my lesser Sunda python
Timor, yeah.
is my Timor is out basking, which is not very often seen.
Okay.
But she did get fed last weekend, and she's out on her piece of slate under the heat lamp, and
Cool.
I'm looking at her and her head hanging off, and I'm like, she kind of looks like a scrub python right now, just because we're talking about them.
Yeah. Yeah, Timors are kind of one of those like honorary scrub adjacent type of species. Well, all right, I'm not going to keep looking, but anyway, she was in. I had her in a YouTube video recently. Yeah, her that like base color has gotten more golden, and the upper, like the front third pattern is still very dark black, but then the middle body pattern is getting a lot lighter. It's almost kind of like silverish. She's fucking gorgeous. I've never seen another barnet quite like her. I like how she has that like perfect diamond in the middle of her pattern in that front third of her body.
Yeah.
Where it's like 4 scales that are just black in a perfect diamond shape. And none of the bands up front are actually bands. They almost look like cave paintings or like hieroglyphs or something like that. It's like the snake is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
But so these right here, like this individual we're looking at, is a Bird's Head Peninsula type barneck scrub python. So historically, as is with a lot of Indonesian reptiles, there have been locality type labels given to scrub pythons where the validity is definitely in question. So the 3 labels that were always given to scrub pythons were Sarong, Manokwari, Jayapura. Up front, Jayapura is quite literally hundreds, if not even like 1,000 miles from barneck territory.
Jeez.
So that is very much inaccurate. The phenotype that is labeled as Wamena are the ones that are coming from Jayapura, and more than likely, most of the ones we have in the U.S. are Jayapura locality animals. So Wamena is very much kind of like a western extent of that range, where I'll not get ahead of myself. But anyway, so Jayapura barneck, not a thing, never been a thing, definitely not a thing. Throw that one out. So the Sarong label was always given to heavily patterned animals. The Manokwari was always given to reduced patterned animals. To the best of my knowledge, and from what others whose opinion I respect, the genetic drift throughout this range is just ridiculous. You can kind of find whichever phenotype wherever throughout the mainland range. And their clutches are super variable. Even when 2 parents look almost identical, like let's say 2 very heavily patterned barnecks with similar color, man, almost really without fail, every clutch will just throw one that is reduced patterned or sparsely patterned or just makes no sense. So in my view right now, barnecks are barnecks throughout that range, and they're just super variable no matter what. So if someone's like, this is a such and such locality barneck, okay, according to who? Like, did you collect it? Did someone collect it? Like, do you really know? No, you have no idea. So, you could very well have locality specific barnecks. You just need to be able to actually prove the chain of custody as to where they came from. And with any that we have in captivity, you just straight up can't. So they're barnecks. But the big phenotype difference comes in when it's the mainland Bird's Head Peninsula or the Raja Ampat archipelago. Those animals are quite different. So for anyone who's seen any of the pictures that have come from some of the trips that like Chris Applin has had over there with people, be it Brian Susan, Ryan Young, Nick Mutton, etc., they're finding barnecks in Raja Ampat. And they are usually have much thinner pattern, almost more of like a reticulated webbed pattern, much thinner neck bars than the mainland types. Usually kind of like a light tan coloration from Raja Ampat, where the colors on the from the bird's head are quite variable. They have a very distinctive look. Kofiau is the farthest west extent, to my knowledge, of the Barneck range, and they kind of follow the same suit where Kofiau animals are pretty reduced pattern, very thin neck bars, kind of sporadic pattern throughout the body. So that there is definitely a distinctive factor. There have been Barnecks over the years that have come in under the label Kofiau. Whether or not I actually believe they're truly Kofiau animals is kind of up for debate. I don't believe that there are any Raja Ampat Barnecks in the US. I've just never seen one that I look at and can say definitively, oh, that looks like a Raja Ampat animal. There have been some that kind of look similar, but then you go onto iNaturalist and look at pictures of Raja Ampat Barnecks, and you're like, oh yeah, no, not at all. They're very unique. So very thin pattern, very webbed pattern throughout the body. They're really cool. It would be really awesome to get my hands on some, but we'll see. So same size parameters you're working with here, where I kind of give a general average of 10 feet for adults. Some might stay smaller than that. Some might get bigger than that. The largest Barneck that I ever had was 14 feet, like definitively 14 feet.
Shoot.
He was a monster, absolute monster of a snake. Biggest snake I've ever owned.
How big around?
Honestly, not that thick. Maybe like.
So like baseball?
No, like
softball?
Like a soft, like maybe like bigger than a softball. I mean,
that's big.
Like 6 inches in diameter, maybe.
Wow.
5-6 inches in diameter. So he was big for sure, but like a berm of the equivalent size would have been like 4 times as girthy as that animal. So he was a big snake. That's an anomaly. I've never had another scrub python over 12 feet long. So, and all of the scrubs that I've had that have been that big or are now are like either, in my opinion, like genetic kind of outliers or overfed. So, rare, very, very rare to get a 12-foot scrub python. It's like, it's like having a retic that's like truly like 17 or 18 feet. Like there are not that many of them unless you power feed the shit out of them. So, but historically imported on the more common side when Indonesian imports were much more frequent into the US, there were always Barnecks on those shipments, without a doubt. In recent years, they've become much less frequent. I think ever since Bushmaster sold, that kind of went down. Scrubs being banned in Florida definitely didn't help either. So that was really one of the biggest causes of the downturn, was when scrubs were officially banned in Florida, for where you couldn't even import them in anymore. So that caused a downturn, no doubt. Bushmaster being sold caused a downturn. Now, I mean, some come in through Kalamazoo every now and then. Fascination was bringing scrubs in for a little while, and Fascination will still have some Barnecks from here and there, but definitely much less frequent on the import side. But with that said, fortunate timing where captive breeding is becoming a lot more frequent with Barneck scrub python. So for me, every year that I've bred scrubs, I've had at least one clutch of Barnecks. I think all time I'm over 10 for sure. I'm not sure exactly the number of Barneck clutches, but I think I had 4 one year. That was my highest number. So, but then other than that, a handful of other people have been producing Barnecks as well. Alexandra had a clutch last year. TJ Chambers produced some. Enough people. It's definitely not just me. So at this point, you can really count on probably 1 to 5 Barneck clutches a year in the US. 5 would be like a very high year, but average probably 2 or 3. And they're available, and there's a range of price, but they're definitely not the most expensive. Like they're not quite Moluccan pricing. I would say in general, you're looking at low end 1,000, high end 2,500 for Barnecks, kind of really depending on phenotype and age. So they're definitely one of the ones that I would recommend as like a first time scrub python to people who want to get into them. Considering you can account or you can handle and house a snake that's potentially 9 feet long or 10 feet long. They're very hardy. Usually they're pretty calm snakes. I have quite a few Barnecks and very few of them concern me whatsoever. And they're fantastic. They're very bold snakes. They're out a lot. They're awesome all the way around.
Hell yeah. So that is kind of your pinnacle of the scrubs.
Yeah, probably so. Like a really nice, Barneck that's one that I've kept for, line breeding projects. Like that's one of my best males right there. Sibling of that one female we were looking at earlier that I was like, that's my favorite one.
Oh, really? That's funny.
But yeah, that shows how variable they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other kind of pattern thing to also talk about is the tail. Like almost all scrub pythons, their pattern is different front end and back end of the body. But you really have kind of two different transitions. You have a transition from their banded pattern into a dark tail or into a light tail. So the same color as the band or the same color as the base. Sometimes you get a little bit of an in-between where they have kind of a banded tail, but for the most part, like that animal has a dark tail and the tail is probably going to keep getting a little bit darker, where the female that we were showing, her tail is much lighter and is continuing to get very light. So, and that exists both in reduced pattern and in heavily patterned. So it's not like one, like if you have a heavy pattern, you have a dark tail, definitely not the case. So I would say if I had to pick between the two, I probably prefer the light tail, but like barely. So I have some of my favorite Barnecks are ones that have dark tails.
How many Barnecks do you have altogether?
I think right now I'm just shy of 40.
Oh my God, dude. That's insane. Wait, like, yeah. But how many adults?
A lot of my adults are small. Like I have 5 3-year-old males that are like breeding age now. If you include those, I would say like 12 to 15.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. Yeah. But a lot of them are younger raise ups. So, but at this point, of those 40, I have 3 that are wild caught. And of the rest of them, I think only a few I didn't produce. So most of my Barnecks are ones that I produced, which I'm very, very fortunate to be able to say.
Yeah. So that's a lot of holdbacks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. A lot of holdbacks. Yeah. And a good amount of them, 3 females and 8 males that are breeding size that I held back.
Okay.
So,
and all right. So what are we talking about next with Amethystina?
Yeah.
Oh, that's another Barneck that I didn't show.
Is
that the same male?
No, that's a sibling.
That's another sibling. That one's very dark.
Yeah, he has that really cool like spot on his tail where you kind of like took an eraser and just like erased the dark pigment in that one spot only. He's super neat. But yeah, sibling of those other ones.
Wow. Very
so
cool.
the next one we'll move on to are the Wamena type, so the northern scrub python. So now you kind of move down from the Bird's Head Peninsula onto the real mainland chunk of Papua New Guinea. So obviously, from our standpoint in captivity, you take that island, you split it right down the middle. The western half is controlled by the Indonesian government. The eastern half is controlled by the Papua New Guinea government. The Indonesian side is where all of our stuff comes from, but that line that in the proverbial sand in the mountains and the jungles means fucking nothing when it comes to the population of these animals. So basically you have like 3 levels of phenotype that go east to west throughout the entire range. And the snakes all within like a 20% variability look the same. So the northern scrub pythons are what the hobby calls Wamena. That phenotype does exist in Wamena. The chances that we actually get these animals from Wamena is very, very low. Like I said earlier, Jayapura is likely where these animals are coming from. So, Jayapura is coastal city, north, right on the edge of the border of Papua New Guinea and West Papua, Indonesian Papua. So the scrubs from right in that area have this phenotype where they're kind of take a bar neck, make it darker, change the color palette a little bit, busy up the pattern, a little less defined, a little less contrasted, more of like a brown to orange spectrum as opposed to tan to gold. Neck bars still do exist. They're much thinner. And the same way that the pattern does change, the tails are fairly banded on these. And then the front is usually less defined pattern. The main distinction factor on these snakes, where you're still learning localities and you're having a hard time, picking apart exactly what's what, they have pale pink solid color tongues. That is the distinguishing factor of this locality, is the tongue. So if you see that, that is the giveaway that, all right, you're looking at a northern scrub python, or what we call a Wamena or a Jayapura. They are kind of less common than some of the other main types, so to speak, with, barnecks and southerns. Kind of like southerns are the most represented. Barnecks are definitely number 2. These might fall in at number 3, but like with a bigger gap between 2 and 3. So they get routinely produced. I've produced them one time. Ryan Young has produced them a few times. So has Nick Mutton. Kind of in recent history over the last 5-6 years or so. Maybe I think Nick even bred them a little bit earlier than that. Another individual in Pennsylvania I know has produced them as well. So they're around. You can kind of realistically rely on about a clutch a year here in the United States of these. They're oftentimes a bit overshadowed in popularity by barnecks, but I do see that coming to an end at some point once more line breeding gets done to where the orange is really accentuated. The ones that Ryan produced this year, I think, are going to be the best Wamena northern types that have ever been produced, or I guess last year, 2025. Wow. The mom on eggs is super orange, and that's the darkest she'll ever be. So the babies are going to be wildly orange. Right now, what we call the Highland type animals are kind of the ones that, when you think of an orange scrub python, you think of them, and you should. But I think give it 5 to 10 years, these northern scrub pythons will be considered in the same exact vein as far as color goes. So they're heavily, heavily slept on. For that reason, they're a little bit more affordable. I think the ones that are on Morph Market right now are like $700-800 for captive bred.
Wow.
So yeah, sometimes upwards of $1,000. Very reasonable for scrub pythons. I never had great luck with imports. I had some do kind of poorly for me. I had some do just fine. So I never had a large volume of these in my collection. Like right now, I just have my adult pair and a holdback pair. So, and it was really just kind of played out that way for no particular reason. It's not like they're one that I don't like as much as others. But I do feel good knowing that a bunch of other people have them. So I don't have a lot of like pressure, like, oh, I need to produce a lot of these because there's just none of them out there. The same way I feel with the Arus. I don't feel that way with these. They're much more plentiful. But this phenotype goes from pretty much as soon as scrubs start, east of the Bird's Head Peninsula, all the way through the other side of the island through Port Moresby. You get scrubs that all realistically look like this. There's some slight pattern differences, slight color differences, but like this is the archetype of this scrub python you're getting on the entire northern side of the island. So pretty much the central mountain range divides the northern and the southern scrub pythons, and that is the phenotype that you get north of there. So then I mentioned them a little bit earlier. I guess before we get to those, we'll hit the Beox. So obviously, kind of, if I'm doing a mirror here, Bird's Head Peninsula over here, Jayapura over here on the mainland. You kind of follow in the mainland over to where it goes into the bird's head. Kind of in between the mainland and the bird's head, you draw a line like that, like vertical and horizontal. Boom. That's Biak and the surrounding islands like Numfor and the one that starts with an S that I'm not going to try to pronounce. But green trees are coming from those other islands. I'm not sure if there's scrubs there. It would make sense if there would be, but I've never seen a Numfor scrub python listed anywhere. But even with that said, most importers don't even know what a Biak scrub is. So they are the opposite of a Biak green tree python. No idea why. So Biak green tree pythons are the most common imports, and the Biak scrubs are of the least common imports, especially from locations that frequently get collected from. From my understanding, the collectors there just don't want to mess with the bigger snakes. They just like messing with the green tree pythons. But green tree pythons are known, or Biak green trees are known for having kind of the biggest attitudes, the best feeding response, the best establishing. Biak scrubs are the opposite. They are very shy. They overall do poorly as wild caught, and they're very difficult to get eating. They'll go on long hunger strikes. They are a pain in the ass. They, much like Halmaheras, are the only other scrub python that are born with adult phenotype. So they're not red. To me, Halmaheras and Biaks are very similar. I've never seen a really big Biak scrub python, although Ryan Young will tell me otherwise, just at least in the animals that I've had. I've never had one over 8 feet long. They have, they're just anatomically very similar to Halmaheras. Their color palette is very similar to Halmaheras. Kind of, they're brown, silver, black, very low contrast pattern. And some of them are kind of brighter, like my male who's in this cage back here. You can't see right now. He's fairly has a bright tan-ish brown color, but still kind of a low contrast pattern. Some of them have like a little bit of yellow on their like lips or chin, a little bit of silver coming in as well. And they're strange. They've only been bred once ever. It was by Lawrence Kensington in Ireland. I believe he produced them in 2019. And first time, never since, never been produced in the US. And, that breeding confirmed the suspicion of the fact that they also are born with adult coloration. I've had a couple neonates over the years that, followed suit. And at least in my experience, but I know others have had this experience, they have a very, very, very low success rate as far as establishing as captives. So I have just 2.1 of Biaks right now, and I've had over 10 of them.
Wow.
And a lot of times they'll do fine. They'll eat, they'll seemingly establish, and then like in a week or two they will just tank, and you're like, oh my gosh, it happened again for whatever reason, or like they just all of a sudden stop eating. Like my smaller male, I got him in. He was doing fine. He's actually on loan from a friend. And he's like, oh, he's doing good. He's eating wean rats for me. I got him, ate a wean rat. And then all of a sudden it was like, didn't want rats anymore. Then I gave him mice. Cool, like the mice. Didn't want mice anymore. Gave him chicks. And then after he decided he didn't want chicks anymore, I think he went about 7 or 8 months without eating.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, live button quail.
Yeah.
And then now you just have them on like frozen thawed Coturnix quail that, leave a good lump. But yeah, that's what they do, man. My male who's up with my female right now, he did a similar thing. He went on a big old hunger strike. And it was actually it was last year. I put him with my female. I did not expect her to develop follicles. She did. She ended up reabsorbing them, and I never saw any action. But I was like, all right, fuck it. This male hasn't eaten for however long. She has follicles. What's the worst that can happen if I try to put them together? Nothing happened, but it kicked him back onto food.
Wow.
And he's been fine since. So they're weird as hell, man. They're the weirdest scrub pythons. I love them. I wish I had more of them, but I don't. And So yeah, definitely the one that I would recommend don't get Biak scrubs yet. If captive reds are available one day, cool. If you do, like, you should only, yeah, that's my female. Basically it's you can imagine taking that money and just like putting it in a blender. It's like, okay, there it is.
They are pretty, but if you want that look, it's almost like, why not just go with a Halmahera that is kind of a more
Yeah,
contrasty, pretty version of it.
or like a darker Wamina, very
Yeah,
similar, and would do much better. Yeah. So eventually they'll be out there, but as of now, I mean, I only know of one other keeper in the States who has them. So
yeah, it's sort of a brown with other shades of brown
yeah,
python.
yeah. When they fire up a little bit of silver, like you can see like that little bit of yellow. They almost can get a little blue on their face too, kind of like a lace monitor, where some lace monitors have that tiny little bit of blue, like on their lips and stuff like that. They kind of have that a little bit sometimes as well. But yeah, definitely a very, very different in every aspect from a lot of the scrub pythons.
And taxonomically, this is the exact same thing as a barneck.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Checks out.
So yeah, I'd be very curious to see just how, like, from a like a DNA profile kind of standpoint, how similar they may be with Halmaheras.
Yeah.
Even though geographically they're not too similar. I'm not Nick Mutton. I don't know how these islands have shifted over the last however many million years. But I'd be curious if they were one at one point. So
Yeah. Yeah, it would make sense. I mean, that pattern looks very, very similar. The head structure is very similar.
yeah, and their behavior is very similar. Like, that's the behavior, and the fact that the babies are born with full adult coloration from those two places and nowhere else. I mean, we talked about how Moluccans sometimes a little bit, but you can kind of think of scrub pythons as a northern clade and a southern clade, with the northern clade being Halmahera, Barneck, Biak, northern, and southerns being Moluccan, Tannenbar, Key, Aru, the whole southern mainland, Australian Amethystina, and Kinghorni.
It's so crazy, dude. There's so much going on there.
Yeah. Like, all the southern animals are relatively similar, all things considered. All the northern animals are relatively similar, all things considered. And quite different, though, than one another. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. All right. Is that what do we have next? What is this one?
That is what is called a highland, but we will get to that in a second. So yeah, that's the first step of going down south. I guess then the honorable mention of the north would be the Bismarck that I mentioned earlier, that is right now just like some pictures on iNaturalist that, they exist, but it's really about it. So then once you get south of the mountain range, then you get the southern scrub pythons, which are anatomically very similar, but as far as color and pattern goes, very, very different. The most stark difference is the complete absence of neck pattern. And that's kind of what can connect all of these northern and southerns. All the northern types have at least some sort of neck pattern thing going on. And then all the southerns have that bare neck going on. Obviously there's a lot of variability. So, like, oh, there's a little pattern on that one's neck. It's like, okay, cool. So the southern scrub pythons, from east to west, north to south, a lot of similarities. The main difference, like, north to south within that population. So central mountain range of Papua New Guinea, south, southern scrub pythons. The main kind of distinctions are the orange animals and the tan animals. So the northern, or the more northern, these orange animals are the ones that have been historically referred to as highlands. And that was always the thought, is that these animals are coming from higher elevation and they're darker as a result of it. Well, not really true. So the real difference is that these orange animals, like the one that you had up on the screen, are living in the jungles that are at the base of the mountain. So, unfortunately, the term jungle has kind of been taken in pythons, so we can't really appropriate it here as much as I'd like to call these the jungle scrubs. Um, Ryan Young refers to them as rainforest phase scrub python, which is probably the most accurate label to use. I'll still say highland. A lot of people still say highland, just as like a way to create the distinction from the then savanna phase or more tan southern scrub pythons. Because while more than likely they're just very similar genetically, there's a lot of variability throughout the range. From like a hobby standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to kind of keep them as two separate things. Breed the orange for the orange, breed the tan for the tan. So the Highland, if you wouldn't mind just throwing that picture back up, so I kind of like, explain a little bit. So that orange coloration on their body is pretty prominent. They'll get some purples in there as well. But then the Southerns have a much generally lower contrast pattern. You can see up earlier in this guy's body some kind of more striping, zigzaggy going on, some side striping near the middle, and then kind of those diamond patterns coming in. The tail always fades to pretty patternless on these guys. But then if you look at the neck right there, there's no neck barring going on whatsoever on that animal. So another distinguishing factor between these rainforest animals and the savanna animals are the kind of lateral orange bars right at the ventral. So down the side, you can kind of see pretty evenly spaced. These like, it's like you took like an orange highlighter and just made these little short lines, these like short fat blotches of orange down the side. You'll see animals that are in the savanna population with that look, especially when they're young, that oftentimes that'll fade on them. And then there are these kind of more rainforesty orange animals that don't have those present. Like I said, they're all pretty similar. It's pretty much the same snake from a bunch of different places, and a lot of the phenotypes can kind of overlap. But then when you are thinking about it from a breeding standpoint and matching phenotypes, that's where if you have a really nice orange animal, you probably don't want to breed it with a regular tan Maruki looking Southern. You're going to get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But if you paired it with a really nice orange animal, you're going to get lots of orange and then probably some that are even nicer than either parent. So that to me is kind of the main distinction. You also then, from a hobby standpoint, get a distinction with the price on them, where for quite obvious reasons, these quote unquote Highland animals are very sought after. They're up there with the most colorful scrub python. I would say you got to go Moluccan, Highland, Aru / Key. Keys are unavailable, so let's just say Aru. As far as the brightest, most colorful scrub python. And of the three overall, you might even give Highlands the overall edge because they don't fade how Moluccans do. And many Arus have, while very rich color, kind of darker orange, red going on, which is still, beautiful beyond belief, but a really bright orange Highland is just, man, it's hard to beat. Yeah. So the two locality type names that have been associated with these animals historically have been Oxabil and Tamika. And while they definitely come from Tamika, Oxabil is to me a bit of a question mark. They're coming from everywhere east to west, right at the basin of the mountain, essentially. The thing that I always kind of half joke about, but it's true, is that a real Highland scrub python is called a Boland's python. These snakes are not coming from high elevations. They're coming from as low as like 1,000 feet or lower sometimes, these orange animals. I'm not sure where the cutoff occurs, but I'm pretty sure that Boland's pythons are even being found as low as like 3,000 feet. So, man, if scrubs even made it past 2,000, I'd be surprised as far as at that part of the range. But again, I don't have a whole lot of real knowledge on that, so I could just be totally talking on my ass. That the color kind of got blown up, but that's a Southern that is of the kind of savanna phase. And that animal is actually quite interesting. So within the southern population, there are genetic patternless animals that
Mm.
are, they're patternless. They're fully patternless. There are some animals that are like, oh, it's kind of, so that's like a rainforest phase, highland colloquially. That's a male that I produced that is he's just amazing. Uh,
Chef's kiss.
yeah, he's one of my favorite snakes in the collection total. So the patternless seems to be less prominent in the rainforest population, although there are some very orange animals that are mostly patternless, but they're not fully patternless the way that some of the like tan ones will be. So the last animal that you had up is actually a het patternless that I produced. So his dad was fully patternless, like tan, fully patternless, and then mom was a kind of darker southern brown and brown, dark brown to a little bit of black. So that super busy pattern to me must be the het patternless because the entire clutch came out like that. Neither
Wow.
parent looked anything like it. So that's a het patternless southern. To me, that's the coolest version between the three phases: the normal pattern, the patternless, and then this. That's my favorite of the three. So in the long term, I might even just like breed southern specifically for the het patternless and not even really shoot to have them be patternless that much. Not that the patternless aren't cool, but like, what are you going to do? You hit the goal. It's like a leucistic ball python. It's like, all right, you're not going to make a leucistic ball python look better. You're just going to make more of them. The same way with the patternless scrub. It's like, all right, I guess you could work on color a little bit, but like where they come from, they don't even get really high colored. So you'd have to deal with locality mixing and stuff like that I would recommend against. But
Yeah, what does that pattern like remind me of? Like a Jamaican boa or something? Like it like I don't know. Like I'm
yeah,
it reminds me of something, not the entire animal, but certain areas of it. It's just so
yeah,
busy
I kind of
and
almost like
contrast.
refer to it as like a granite phase
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, just super busy, super staticky. It's really cool. So that's kind of what's going on there. As far as morphs go, that's really the only, unless I'm missing something blatant, in southern scrub pythons, like a real genetic morph that is naturally widespread would be that patternless, where the northern animals don't have that. There have
Mm.
been some Wamina northern animals that have had like that have been very different, like very light colored and very minimally patterned. But I don't think any of them have ever been bred to figure out what that is. But they've shown up from time to time, so it's probably something genetic. I'm just not 100% sure what it is.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's what that is. I will say, at least from what I've seen, the Tamika animals do have a bit of a distinctive look where they're usually pretty dark, where they can have like dark purple on them. They the real distinctive factor that I look for when I'm like, okay, that's probably a Tamika animal. Their chin is like highlighter yellow. Like the entire underside of their head is highlighter yellow. And they have those strong lateral orange bars up the side, dark pattern, but really high contrast. They're fantastic. There have been a few clutches of those produced in Europe that have yielded some outstanding results that I don't believe any of them ever actually made it over to the States, but quite a few keepers over there have animals from those productions, and they are just flawless. So
Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of the mainland southern animals. And then kind of aside from Beox, all of these that we're going over right now, physiologically, you're pretty much looking at the same snake. About a 9-10 foot long adult, sometimes a little bit larger, slender, light bodied, very muscular. So pretty much within these different localities, very little anatomical difference. They're pretty much the same snake with a different paint job.
Hmm.
Obviously, again, sans Biak. So then going south to, or I guess off of the western side, south to the islands, you have Aru and Ki or K. The Aru scrubs are, again, up there with arguably the nicest, best looking scrubs. The way that I always like to describe them is that they look like an orange and purple diamond python. So imagine diamond python pattern, and then put like an orangey filter that then turns the back part of it purple, and you got an Aru scrub. They're fantastic. They have that kind of diamondy pattern to them. I produced them last year. That was the first breeding in the US. They had been bred once in Europe and once at Bushmaster in Indonesia back in the day. And the babies were like pink. It was pretty cool. So definitely a bit different, OCC like all the rest of them do. And they're very underrated and overlooked, mostly on account of just being very unavailable. They've been imported on very rare occasions. I got my group in 2019. There was a handful that came in, and I was very fortunate to scoop some of them up. So, yeah.
Yeah, here's just a picture. If you're listening of the patterning, I mean, you pretty well summed it up. You kind of painted the picture in my mind, but
Yeah.
If you're watching, you can see these, incredible patterns, awesome colors.
Their appearance.
If you were to look at these out in the sun, I'm assuming that they'd have insane iridescence because it looks like they have crazy iridescence inside.
Especially the darker they are, the more iridescent they are. Yeah. But the thing that's nice about the darker Arus is that they maintain a lot of contrast. So they're pretty freaking cool. To me and to a lot of other scrub enthusiasts, they're beauty rivals that of Moluccans, and you could probably put them a step ahead, again, based on how they maintain that color throughout their life and get nicer and nicer. So Dan had some at Pomona. It was pretty cool to see.
Really?
Reports. So yeah.
Was Dan was at Pomona?
Yeah. Yeah. He had
nice.
Really cool table. A lot of chondros and scrubs. So this Pomona was definitely the heaviest scrub show I've ever been to.
Really?
There were probably like 20 scrub pythons there. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe even a little more. And all like good looking stuff too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. So that is the Arus. And then just a little west, you have the Keys or the K scrubs. And they've been.
What am I looking at right here?
That's a barneck.
Oh, that's a barneck?
Yes. Yeah.
So variable, dude.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
You see why I have 40 of them.
Yeah.
That's one of my big females. So these have a very unique look to them. They appear very Moluccan-like because they are gold and purple. But anatomically, they're an Aru. They're pretty much the same. So similar pattern to an Aru, but instead of like orange and purple, it's gold and purple. And then from a pattern standpoint, one of the main distinctive differences between the Moluccans and the Keys is that the Keys will have these kind of like silver dots down their sides that Moluccans just don't have. They have a much more amethystina head structure to them, where I said Moluccans get like these really big bulbousy heads. The Keys won't do that. Their pattern's a little bit like more spread out, I would say, but they're pretty damn cool. I'm lucky to have only one individual, and I'm fairly certain it's the only one that's in the US. So,
wow. And Key Island is spelled Kei.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated.
Yeah. So that's them. There's not a whole lot to say about them yet. Obviously, they've never been bred in captivity, and they're spectacular, but not a whole lot of movement as far as captivity goes with them. So, not much to say on that front.
Okay. Yeah, I'm working. I wanted to grab a picture of them, but
there should be one on my Instagram somewhere.
Yeah, I've got one.
Cool.
Let me pull that up here.
Yep, that's my male looking quite dark, actually. Let me see. There's another picture further up where he's much more fired up. He goes through quite a color transition. You see those silver dots on the sides, though?
Yeah.
That's like the main thing to really look for. If you can't pick out the nuances in the head structure, those silver dots are really what'll give it away. Let's see.
I've got a perfect picture here, and it looks like he just shed. He's like laying on top of his shed.
Let's see. That's probably the one I'm thinking of right now.
And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot more color, visible color in this one. Look at that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's like the best that snake has ever looked.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's like spots of like a blue gray kind of, it's hard to put into words.
Yeah. So very Moluccan looking as far as color goes. Body structure is fully amethystina, just like the Arus. They're basically like a smack dab right in the middle of those two. You get these. So yeah, they're pretty fucking neat.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Yep. And that
all right,
that kind of rounds it out. I mean, I touched a little bit on the Iron Range amethystina, how they're, Australia is not just Kinghornite, it's Kinghornite and some amethystina. And then I mentioned that the scrub on Good Enough Island that Ari saw on his trip. So there's inevitably there's more that will be discovered, but that's kind of what we're looking at for right now.
Why isn't there so many more? Like, I feel like scrub pythons, after going through this with you, make up a huge portion of the pythons that are out there in the wild.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But there's 16 on Morph Market.
Yeah. I mean, it's just because the market is still really in its infancy. They've been bred for over 25 years now, but they were never really seen as like an industry kind of species or a species that's worth breeding for the sake of being part of your business model or whatever. And not that that's a good reason to do anything, but I think also that their reputation for their temperament never helped the cause. Yeah. As I and many others have discovered these days, it's really the reputation is pretty much unfounded across the board. There are just some behavior things that you need to learn, primarily just learning how to work with a python that's so visually oriented, much more like a colubrid in that sense than a lot of other pythons that are much more going off of scent and heat signature, where a scrub will lock eyes with you. Like, that animal is clearly staring at you. So, and they're very capable. Like, they have long strike ranges. They're very accurate when they strike. They're not like a retake where they're just going to, I'm going to hit something eventually. Like, they're very calculated. They're going to strike when they know they're going to be able to accomplish their goal.
Dude, my Timor python did that. I opened her cage to feed her, and I haven't fed her a lot over the
Timor is the retake at the end of the day.
Dude, I opened her cage and I put the rat in front of her hide. Or maybe I just was getting the rat out of the bin. I can't remember. But dude, she came out of the hide with her mouth open and came like a solid 10 inches out of her cage. And it was like, God dang, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
She didn't even know what to bite at. She's just like, I'm going to get something. Something is going to get got.
Yep, exactly. So, but I don't know, to me, when I first started getting into scrub pythons, I had a pretty diverse python collection from balls, Timors, white lips, Papuans, carpets, yada yada, green trees, and now olives. Now it's scrubs and 5 or 6 total other pythons, which are literally all pets that I've had for like 10 to 16 years. So,
yeah, I mean, a shitload of colubrids and venomous.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much the same number of those two categories combined as scrubs. A little, they'll edge it out a little bit, but yeah.
Well, now there is one other thing that we haven't covered with scrub pythons, Stephen.
Oh.
Can you think of what I'm thinking of right now? All these species, all these localities. Crosses.
Oh, That dirty word.
Is it?
Crosses.
I mean, so you're obviously very much into the localities and knowing what you have and what you're breeding, right?
Yeah.
And when people say crosses, it's usually crossing amethystina, right? So you're taking
Yeah, I mean, that
that.
has been done so far. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
So I have seen, obviously, there have been multiple clutches in the last few years of Barneck and Southern crosses. We've all seen them. And frankly, some of them look really cool. There was a clutch that was made in 2020 that was a Highland animal and a Southern animal. So probably not necessarily a hybrid, but a cross of two very distinctive looking animals that were definitely different localities that yielded a bunch of different results as far as phenotype in the offspring. I have seen a video of what was allegedly a Barneck and a Moluccan crossed that frankly looked like a dirty Moluccan. I was actually very happy to see what I saw, because that was always the one where you wonder, like, what if you could have a Moluccan that's like banded like a Barneck? Wouldn't that be something? But was not the case. And then I have seen a Barneck Boland's hybrid that honestly was pretty badass. So not gonna
Where
lie.
did you see that? Who did that?
I don't know who did it, but Snakes at Sunset had it up on King Snake for the longest time. It was an adult too. It was a big animal, so it must have been produced in like the late 2000s. This was probably around like 2017, 2018, and it was an adult animal. It was only one, and I have no idea where it came from, no idea where it went, but they had it Barneck Boland's hybrid, and it looked like yeah, that checks out. It was pretty cool. So I don't want anyone to do that again, but got to be honest, it was a cool snake.
Yeah, there's I don't know, like crosses are kind of cool to see. I'm a big fan of berm ball crosses. I think that they just look so neat, I know that
it's very playing God there.
Yeah. But they're cool looking, I mean, they're like, if you get like that berm pattern on, in like a smaller package,
Sure.
I don't know. It's neat looking. I can't have them anyway, but I think if I could have one, I'd probably have one as a pet because they're just so cool.
Yeah. See, so there's a lot of debate within the scrub world about these crosses. Most people are against them who are into scrub pythons, and most of the arguments are pretty good. So a lot of scrub people were or still are carpet people and have lived through the hell that has been unwinding carpet localities and species.
Yeah.
Of all the crossing that was done, and like basically losing a lot of pure stuff because all the emphasis was on crossing. And then the proverbial "what is my carpet python" type of questions on pages, Facebook and whatnot, that drive everyone crazy. So people are worried about that happening with scrubs. And I think that it's a good concern to have. It's good to be conscious of it before it's too late. I think a lot of people are worried about keepers from other facets of the hobby, primarily like retics or ball pythons, getting interested in scrub pythons and trying to like morph them up in the form of crossing.
Yeah.
Which is definitely, it's a worthwhile concern. And then obviously the concern of, okay, so, cause some of these Barneck and Southern crosses, some of them, like I said, are really, really beautiful. Some of them look identical to a Southern. So what if that animal ends up being passed off as pure Southern one day? And no fault to the breeders, but you can only control that narrative for so long. And maybe that animal is sold and you're not aware of it. Like with Alexandra, she can do everything to the T of representing those animals. And if somebody tries to sell one publicly and is saying this is the Barneck, she can go and lambast them across the internet. Nope, this is a lie. What if the animal was sold privately 2 or 3 times and someone breeds it to another Barneck that doesn't even have social media, and now you have these fake pure Barnecks that are 25% Southern that are floating around, and the worry is like it's going to become like diamonds. Where like, how do you know if you have pure diamonds? Well, you got to go to one of a very few sources to know that you actually have pure diamonds. So, I would say there's just so many people that are focused on pure scrub pairings that it's hard to imagine that they would get to the point of where you couldn't get them. And another thing that I think is going to be, and probably the main reason why I am not concerned, is that these crosses are not demanding a higher price tag than pures. Because I think ultimately that would be the incentive to cross and to hybridize, is to make more money. And if the next new scrub hybrid isn't going to be the next $3,500 snake, then what's, like, if you have a Barneck, you have a Highland, and if you bred that Barneck to another really nice Barneck, you could sell those babies for $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. And same thing with the Highlands. But if you crossed them and now those babies are all $800 a piece, well, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
You're just, you're economically de-incentivized to do it. So that's kind of my thought process in the end. Frankly, from what I've seen of the very few crosses, I don't think there's a single cross that would make something nicer than it already is. I think it's only going to be a factor to water down. I don't think there's a diamond jungle jag scrub out there. I really don't.
Yeah.
So that alone, I think, will also de-incentivize it. But will it happen? Sure, inevitably. As the scrub market grows, as more people are keeping, people are going to run dumb experiments. And I think what'll end up happening is they'll realize, I really should have just bred pures, and more people would have wanted them. So
yeah.
But we'll see.
Here's a just as an example. Here's one of the burn balls I think is exceptional. This is from Matt Miller at Eternal Morphs. And
oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. That's cool.
Yeah, no, it does look cool.
If I could have that, I would have that.
Yeah.
If I could have that, I would absolutely have that.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Like, if you look at hybrid reptiles, generally speaking, hybrid reptiles are not very popular. The only area where they are, and they kind of became hybrids, not that they weren't always hybrids, but they became recognized as hybrids after the fact, would be designer green tree pythons. But aside from that, I don't know if there's even one sector of the hobby where hybrids are just like, wow, everyone's after hybrids.
Yeah.
Like Carpandros are a super niche thing. All of these Berm, Ball, Angolan, Blood, within the short tail community, and I'm pretty far removed, but like a short tail hybrid is like, nobody wants anything to do with any of that, right?
Yeah.
They're all very much Bloods, Borneos, Sumatrans, and nothing gets crossed.
Yeah, it's been very, very poo-pooed. Like people are not on board with that.
So like if somebody took a Borneo short-tailed python and bred it to a red blood, I mean, not to be crass about it, but that would be cobra food.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can't remember if it was Matt Minatola or Keith McPeak, but one of them said it on NPR that the upside is that when you cross them, they don't look that great.
Yeah.
And so,
right. I mean, think about those three snakes. Like, what about a blood python or a Borneo would make a Sumatran short-tail look better? What about a Sumatran or a Borneo would make a blood look better? I mean, like, just on the very base, like just the face value of it, none of that would happen. They would all make each other look worse. So
yeah,
I think that's the case with a lot of the scrub pythons. I think a lot of these crosses would just take a lot of the best features of either type and just water them down and make them look like a worse version, like the Barneck Moluccan hybrid.
Yeah.
It just looked like a brown Moluccan. It was like, oh, so you took the gold snake and you made the gold less gold. Good job. So
yeah. And this is another example from Matt Miller.
Is that like a leopard ball or something?
Dude, I don't know.
Clown,
but he's got to be like the only person that makes me look at hybrids and go, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. There's like, I'm sorry, but that's cool, right?
Definitely is. It's neat. Yeah. It's not for me, but it's interesting.
Yeah. And like, and that's the thing too, is like, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but visually it is a very appealing snake. I mean, and
a lot of Carpondros are just objectively really, really cool.
Yeah.
They just look very cool. But what's great about Carpondros is that they look nothing like a green tree and they look nothing like a carpet.
Yeah.
So you could never mistake a Carpondro for either one of the ingredients involved. Like a bat eater, you could never mistake. The one though that I am concerned about are these Timor retic hybrids.
Yeah.
Those things look very non-Timor-y, very fucking fast.
Yep.
That will be a problem.
Yeah.
So
what do they call that?
Hope that all of those clutches are being made with male Timors. Because if you've wasted a female Timor on a retic, shame on you. Shame on you.
It's almost like it's so hard to breed Timors that, people are just like, I know I can make this work,
Yeah. I mean, like I've seen 75% retic morph Timor crosses, and I'm like, there's no Timor. Like you can see it once but it could just be some fucking retic morph that looks different now. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So that will be a problem for sure. But there aren't too many examples of that. But like the Barneck Southern crosses could go that way. Like the Northern Emerald Tree Boa Basin crosses look super distinctive from either one of the species. So, and I think some of those look pretty cool. Not sure I would ever keep them, but I think that some of those hybrids look pretty cool. So,
yeah, it's I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. It would be so cool if I could breed 2 more pythons one day. I mean, as I sit here and look at my female as she basks in her glory. I mean, that was, especially since Ryan doesn't have them now.
Someone's got to, someone's got to pick up the torch.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, it would be cool to do, and I'm hopeful that like, I've got these captive bred animals that are,
it's a good starting point.
Yeah, and I've had them since they were babies. I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I mean, and just since we brought up Ryan so many times, here's a picture of him.
Oh, that caught me off guard, but that is so true. That is so true.
There's our guy.
There's Ryan Young in the flesh.
Yep, there's Ryan Young. I think that's him. That's him going up a mountain in Washington or Idaho. He's out.
Yep.
He's out for a hike. Just
being better than everybody.
What a stud. Yeah, look at the way he's looking at you.
You're like, you peasant.
Yeah.
You haven't even bred 50 python species, you peasant.
Look at the poppers. All right.
Oh, fuck, that's funny.
We've been recording for 3 hours now. We're getting a bit silly, Steven.
This is what happens, dude. This is what happens after you hit the 3 hour mark. It's like you can't hold it back anymore. There's no more professionalism after 3 hours.
Yeah. But man, you really have it. You have it down with all the scrubs, dude. You've got it. You've got everything filed away up there. It's kind of nuts. I'd be like, he must be done talking now. Now we'll move on. I'm not done yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, 10 years of obsessing, kind of, at least as far as this aspect goes, kind of distilled down into 3 hours. So
yeah. Yeah.
We didn't even talk about any breeding or care or any of that stuff. So
I think we've done that previously.
Yeah, I'm not saying we have to. I'm saying like just as far as what they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no there's no scrubs that need to be kept cooler or hotter with the exception of Boelens, right? Otherwise, the rest of them, they're all kept more or less the same.
Yeah. 100%.
Right on,
Very
man.
equatorial.
Yeah. Equatorial.
Equatorial.
Ooh, equatorial.
That's a 3-hour term right there.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
Yep, thank you for having me,
I think we've covered everything. Oh, you know what? I want to cover one more thing.
Okay.
About scrub pythons. And maybe you've had some experience with this over the years. And it's sort of a broad subject when it comes to, I think, keeping snakes in general. You know, I've been conversing with friends about this. The concept of gatekeeping.
Time for the 4th hour of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I'm like, how do you feel about gatekeeping? And let me give you my opinion on it first, and then I'd like you to poke holes in it and give me your thoughts on it, because I like that. In my opinion, we should be trying to get as many people to keep and care and reproduce these animals in captivity at the highest level possible. And the only way to do that is through the sharing of information and knowledge, right? Like, if the person that invented Wi-Fi or computers said, nope, this is only my information, it will never be shared, then we wouldn't be doing this right now.
Right.
You know, like you make a discovery and then it gets shared, it gets passed on. And at the end of the day, every single one of us, to one degree or another, standing on the shoulders of giants. Whether you have a car or air conditioning or whatever it is, you know, you can apply that to so many things. Now, granted, we were talking about Tracier, which was, you know, officially described in the year 2000.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we're on like the bleeding edge of this.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my thought on it. You know, it's like, mentor people, share information, be kind.
Yeah.
Especially don't give false information. That's the worst thing. Like, I get it if you want to hide information because you want to be the guy that's doing the thing. I get that.
Yeah.
But don't sit there and say, oh yeah, you got to make sure you do X, Y, and Z, and just totally mislead people and spread misinformation to ruin it. Don't do that.
Yeah, there have been quite a few instances of that in this hobby in over the years. Yeah, I mean, the scrub python community was one of extraordinary gatekeeping. It was probably the main reason why it didn't grow sooner than it did, where there was a few keepers that were very mean to everybody back in you know, when I was first getting involved. Just real crass, short, snooty, cold, and, you know, very know-it-all, and very much like, if you don't know what I know, you know, I'm gonna spit on you. Like, just real dicks, and lots of public fighting, really doing almost everything, it seemed, to where they didn't want other people to keep scrub pythons for whatever reason. A lot of ego involved, like over exaggerating their demeanor, like their temperament, being like, you know, working my scrub room is only something that I'm capable of because these snakes are so vicious that only I know how to. Oh, okay. Like, yeah. almost treating it as if like they were venomous. And even still, like, to have that mindset with venomous is like, okay, calm down, you know. Unless you're like working with taipans and mambas all day, like, shut up, it's a snake. Like, calm down. But yeah, it was quite the uphill battle to fight against said gatekeeping, and for a community to form of, and particularly of younger or newer keepers who really liked these snakes and didn't like being treated like they were, you know, children who didn't know anything that they were talking about, or like that a question was stupid. Like, I don't know, it's all ridiculous. And all of us, to one degree or another, owe a lot of what we have going on to people who decided to mentor us. And the reason why many of them decide to, offer their help is because others did that for them. Like it's this circuitous loop of pay it forward. That's how the hobby runs. That's how the hobby thrives. And anybody who is in the business of breaking that pattern is, for one, just not doing this for the right reason. Two, they're probably very troubled people inside. I can't imagine anybody who's happy and secure within themselves and their lives would want to treat others that way, or even in the worst case, intentionally mislead people. Like that seems absolutely insane. So, as far as what you said about like withholding information, there's certain areas of the industry where that's like that, not that big of a deal. Like with morphs or something like that. Like, let's say if the first person to find out that the super striped ball python was an allelic morph, like, shit, I'm not telling anybody this until they figure it out for themselves. Well, that doesn't hurt anybody. The animals are still fine. Like, not, misleading people on how to breed the snakes. It's like you're just holding back this information on a morph. Like, is that something you should do? That's maybe another discussion, but who does that really hurt at the end of the day? It doesn't really hurt anybody. It's just kind of like competition in business. But when it comes to, there's, I think with the Alvarezi black beaded lizards, there was a breeder in the U.S. who was intentionally giving out false information to people on how to breed those lizards so that they wouldn't ever breed them. And those are expensive ass lizards. Like, somebody drops like 20 grand with you on lizards and then you tell them how to breed them wrong. Like, that's pretty fucked up. So yeah, people like that, they get away with it too, because the hobby is so big. And, oftentimes when somebody is screwed over, they're not going to go public with it. And as we have seen over and over again, a lot of times if somebody tries to go public against a person who has a big name, they get shit on by all the sycophants who won't even look at the facts of the situation. So, I think that gets into a whole other discussion that's not even animal related anymore, but we'll save that, I guess. But it's terrible. It ruins communities within the industry. It limits your own personal growth. Like, if you are somebody who is one of the top breeders within your species or your community or whatever it may be, and you are making it a hostile environment for new people, okay, well, there go probably what will amount to tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, of sales over time that you will make. And you are squandering it because you want to feel high and mighty in the moment and have an ego trip because a new person asked a question that should be obvious to somebody who's been doing it for a while, but it's not obvious to them because they're new. And you're going to shit on them for asking a dumb question instead of answering it and helping them. Just because you need to stroke your ego. So yeah, I hate everything about that. I do not associate with people who carry themselves that way. So not a fan.
Somebody's hurt you, haven't they, Stephen?
No, I just been around long enough to see a lot of, yeah. So,
I'm sure you saw it. I'm sure Rob Christian probably saw a lot of it too.
Even to go outside of scrub pythons, like it happened to me in scrubs for sure. And I was just so obsessed with them that I'm like, fuck it. I'm not going to, let somebody like this ruin my time. But like, yeah, when somebody who was, considered one of the bigger scrub guys, I was able to have a little back and forth conversation, and then they just kind of shit all over me. I'm like, that like hurt for a while. And I'd have to imagine that in some instances that could just fully discourage a person from wanting to be involved in that community altogether. So, or like in the venomous world, I've had a few people kind of really do me dirty and just really sour me to a lot of the community. So little actions like that can have ripple effects throughout, if you want to look at it from a business standpoint, through your industry and your business, and letting people stay around who carry themselves like that will ultimately reflect poorly on your community at large, even if it's not necessarily you who's doing it. But if people are carrying themselves poorly and scamming and whatnot within your sector of the hobby, reflects poorly on all of you. I mean, look at all the fighting in the retic community. There are a lot of very good people in the retic community, and there are probably disproportionately compared to other sectors of the hobby, a lot of bad people in the retic community, and they really give a bad name to that community. So, you can be doing everything right, but if you're associated in a world of slop like that, there's only so much you can do to get that stink off of you too.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think I think it's a good note to end it on. Well, the thing is those people that didn't want to teach you anything, they did teach you something.
Oh, for sure.
They taught you how to not treat people.
100%. Yeah.
And one day when some, young kid comes to you and you're 40, 50 years old or whatever, and they ask you a question, you're probably going to be a lot more kind and charitable.
I mean, it's part of why I like to do the podcast, because it's one of the most effective ways of disseminating information these days.
Yeah.
And most of the content is evergreen too. So, any of our first podcasts still have very relevant information today. I mean, a lot of the Morelia NPR episodes that were from over a decade ago have relevant information. So, it's one of the beauties of this medium.
Yeah.
We may or may not have had a 3-hour podcast about just that kind of topic alone for a little. Well, by the time this comes out, from about 8 months ago, but
oh, come on, man! Jeez Louise. Patreons get first access.
Fair enough. Yeah. You want to hear this episode soon? Go to. Well, doesn't matter now. You're either hearing it on the Patreon earlier, you're hearing it when it comes out. But yeah. Go to the Patreon.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.